Now, today, we are gonna see, what if Harry Potter shattered and had Norse deity as his father? Join Patreon for early ACESS and exclusive content of Super Op stories. Also adult and steamy Harry Potter stories too. Please subscribe this channel, because definitely I will try my best to provide a valuable content for you all. Also check the description to support the original author for this beautiful creation. The infirmary was quiet. In a private room off the main ward, a young, dark-haired teenager lay sleeping. The school nurse had just left when the door slowly opened and a scruffy, four-legged dark shadow crept in and hopped onto the foot of the sleeping teen's bed. Harry Potter, champion of the Tri-Wizarding tourney, lay silent and still beneath the white sheets of the Hogwarts infirmary. Mere hours before he had fought for his life when the tourney cup had dragged him and his co-champion, Cedric Diggory, to a graveyard in Little Hangleton. There Cedric was killed. Harry became an unwilling participant in a dark ritual that ended with him fighting a resurrected Lord Voldemort. When he was finally able to break away, he grabbed the cup, along with Cedric's body, and returned only to appear in front of the panel of judges and proclaim for all to hear, "He's back. Voldemort is back," after which he collapsed in grief and shock. Scruffy black dog carefully sniffed the teen over, checking his injuries. Satisfied that all had been taken care of, he settled at the foot of the bed to guard and wait out the night. Opening his eyes, Harry found himself in a strange stone and wood room with velvet tapestries hanging on the walls. A roaring fire burned in a large stone and brick fireplace that filled the far wall. To one side of it a lean-faced man with impish green eyes sat in a very ornately carved bone and wood chair covered in furs. "You've grown much since I last saw you, boy. I guess I could say I'm proud of you, he man remarked as he gestured Harry to sit in the vacant chair across from him. "You haven't quite turned out as I had hoped, but given what you've been through, I can say you've done well, learning to hide your skills in plain sight." "Who are you?" The man smiled, but the smile did not quite reach his eyes. "Who am I? I'm your father." Harry, on the verge of sitting, straightened up to glare down at the man, who was pouring a drink into a curved drinking horn. "My father was James Potter." The man smiled and gestured. Harry found himself standing in another room. It was dark and the only lights were the candles dotted around a chalked circle. Much to Harry's horror, inside the circle were two naked people. "Mum, Dad," Harry whispered. "They can't hear you," the man remarked, still holding the drinking horn. Harry noticed that not only were they alive and nude, but they were very young. "This has to work, Lils. It just has to," James Potter murmured. Lily Potter smiled at her husband. "I've researched the ritual and it will work. Tonight, I will conceive a child. Our child, sweetheart." Harry glanced up at the strange man who was sipping from his drinking horn. James Potter was hexed during his time at that school you go to. He was incapable of siring children. They tried everything. Before that evening, quote, Harry turned back to watch as his parents knelt in the middle of the circle and started to chant. A wind picked up, causing the candles to flicker. He tried to look away as his parents started to watch. The man commanded. She was so beautiful, he whispered. What man, or God, could resist her nubile charms? Harry tried in vain to turn away as he was forced to watch his father have sex with his mother. Merlin, he's going to be scarred for life. The man fought Harry's side and approached the circle. Harry watched as the stranger stepped into the circle and faded into James's body. In horrified fascination, Harry watched as his mother cried out, and with her scream, the candles went out. Harry sat up in bed. He was back at Hogwarts. It was all a dream. Yes, a dream. No, actually it had been a nightmare. He had not just dreamed of watching his dead parents having sex on a floor during a ritual. Had he? Go to the goblins, boy, came a whisper in the back of his mind. It sounded like the man in his dreams. They have something for you. Ask to see your mother's vault. The answers are there. Trust no one with what you find there except your dogfather and the goblins. Don't come back here, either of you. I've got it covered. Quote, the scruffy black dog jerked awake when Harry sat up. Suddenly, where the dog had been was a scruffy-looking man. Harry, are you all right, kiddo? Serious? Harry inquired, still looking a little wild-eyed. Nightmare. Sirius Black, Harry's godfather inquired softly as he pulled the teen into a protective hug. Harry tried not to flinch as he was drawn in. I'm fine, Sirius. If I believed that, then I have a hippogriff to sell. He scoffed. Wait, I do, Merlin. I can't even use that anymore. Harry tried not to giggle into his godfather's shoulder. They stayed that way for a few minutes before Harry pulled away. Sirius, did my parents have problems? Harry started to ask. He hadn't realized how hard this was going to be, having me. Why do you ask, Prongslet? Harry shrugged, but with some careful prodding. He told Sirius about his dream. Sirius snickered at the green hue that Harry was turning. Yeah, I walked in on my parents doing the horizontal dance once. Merlin and Morgana, no kid wants to walk in on that. I was scarred for life, Sirius remarked, and James did confide in me after Lily got pregnant at the difficulties they had. Seems James was hit with an infertility hex while we were here at school. We think it was Malfoy, or maybe Snivellus, who did it to get back at James for taking Lily away from him. Oh, why do you ask? I have to get to Gringotts. But I don't think Dumbledore will allow it, Harry remarked, changing the subject. He didn't know why, but he trusted that man from his dreams. Especially with Sirius confirming parts of it. And nobody can know, we can't trust anyone. No, he won't. He's determined to send you back to your relatives, even with everything that's happened. Sirius hopped off the bed. Well, no time like the present. We'll be back before they even notice you're missing. This last statement was muffled as Sirius rummaged in the wardrobe for Harry's clothes. Chapter 1. Dawn's early light was just peeking through the trees of the Forbidden Forest. Night's shadows were swiftly retreating as color returned to the world. Two darker shadows slipped out of Hogwarts Castle and joined their flight down the path towards the quaint village of Hogsmeade. Diagon Alley was eerily quiet. Not many shoppers were up and about as Harry and a cloaked Sirius walked up the steps of Gringotts Bank. A set of guards bracketed the entrance as Harry entered. It seemed that they were the first customers today, so Sirius immediately removed Harry's invisibility cloak. Goblins were very touchy about possible thieves and frowned anything that hid one's true appearance from them. Neither of the pair wanted to cause any undue problems with the keepers of their monies. Harry went up to the nearest teller and inquired to see the Potter account manager. Not long after that, Harry and Sirius were ushered into a Spartan office. An elderly goblin glanced up as they entered. What do you wish, wizards? Came a gravely voice. He motioned to the two hardback chairs sitting in front of his heavy, granite-topped desk. I am Flintlock, the account manager for House Potter, and who might you be? After Harry verified that he was, indeed, the Potter heir through use of a blood ritual, Flintlock nodded and repeated his question. I wish to visit my mother's vault. I've just been told she left some information for me. Harry responded with a slight hesitation. You do realize that you do not have full access to this vault, Mr. Potter. You are allowed to remove books, letters and portraits, but nothing else. Yes, sir. I will abide by those rules. Harry hastened to assure. Flintlock, however, was staring directly at Sirius when he spoke. Wah, me, Sirius sputtered. You think I would? You may not have been here for some time, Mr. Black, but we goblins have long memories. Harry silently regarded his godfather with an arched brow as they walked to the carts. Sirius was not talking. Harry's hands shook as he started to read the letter that should have been given to him 4 years ago when he first visited Gringotts. Darling, by now you have gotten your Hogwarts letter, and if this was a perfect world, Sirius would have told you all about us and how much we love you. But this isn't a perfect world, and I have a very bad feeling that someone will try to keep Sirius from you and send you to live with my dreadful sister and her oaf of a husband. I believe that someone to be Albus Dumbledore. Do not trust him. I fear he has his own agenda for you. He likes to spout his greater good philosophy. The only problem with that is one needs to ask. For the greater good of whom? I am afraid it is for the good of Albus Dumbledore, not for you. Listen to me. I sound almost as bad as Moody with his paranoia. Harry, in time, you will meet someone in your dreams that claims to be your father. Believe him. Your daddy, James, couldn't have children. We tried many ways to break the curse that someone had placed on him, but nothing worked. Then, in an ancient book in the Potter Vault, I found a ritual begging any deity listening to help us and to give us a child. One did. He has always taken an interest in James and the Marauders. According to this deity, they amused him. He always accepted the pranks they did as if they were offerings pleasing to him. Who were we to argue? We so wanted a child. He passed James during the ritual and you were conceived. No matter what anyone may say, I was never unfaithful to your daddy James. Your deity sire forbade us to tell you who he is. He says that any he fathered would be smart enough to figure it out. He also remarked that any child he fathered would be in danger. But he did give his permission for James to blood adopt you so that the Potter family magic would accept you as the Potter heir. Oh my son, within minutes of your birth, we knew that you had both mine and his eyes. We, James and I, hurriedly performed the blood adoption and it took. Thankfully, you kept those beautiful green eyes but inherited James's bird's nest of dark hair. Remember my darling Harry, you were wanted and loved the moment you were conceived, by both your father James and myself. I am just sorry we were not there to see you grow up. Love always Mom and Dad. Harry and Sirius spent most of the day with Flintlock going over Harry's inheritance as well as claiming his lordship as head of the ancient and noble house of Potter. Further heritage tests showed that Harry was heir to the Peverils. This news caused a bit of a stir among the goblins. Sirius knew the story of the three brothers who bested death, and thus were gifted the 3 Deathly Hallows. Harry, who hadn't heard the story before, was intrigued. To be able to claim blood relationship to one of the Peverils, as well as having the cloak, was amazing. You do know that the youngest son was actually a demigod? Flintlock inquired. He was the son of the Greek god Hades. Since you, Lord Potter, were blood adopted and magic has accepted the claim, it makes you a descendant of Hades as well. After a moment of stunned silence, Harry mumbled, "We're not going back to Hogwarts. What can you do to help us out?" A plan of action was hashed out as the day waned. Flintlock arranged for Harry and Sirius to stay at a posh London hotel near the Leaky Cauldron, under the names of Nigel P. and Evan J. Grimm. The next few days would prove hectic. The first thing Harry did once they were in their suite was order food for 2. The next was to figure out clothing. He and Sirius left Hogwarts without much. Harry lamented that he left his trunk back in his dorm room. "Why don't you call that crazy elf that you were telling me about in Flintlock's office?" Sirius inquired as they waited for room service. Harry face-palmed and called out, "Dobby, Master Harry Potter, sir," called for his Dobby. A very strange-looking creature wearing mismatched socks and a maroon sweater appeared. "Dobby, I need your help," Harry started to say but was interrupted as Dobby threw himself at Harry, hugging his legs and sobbing that his, Harry Potter sir, needed poor Dobby. Sirius wasn't much help as he was doubled up laughing. It took a few minutes to calm Dobby down and to tell him what they wanted. He soon returned with all of Harry's things, including a very disgruntled snowy owl, who made her displeasure known. "Ow, sorry Hedwig, stop that, I'm sorry girl but it was the only way. Ow," Harry yelled, trying to dodge the sharp beak of his very miffed owl. Sirius wasn't much help as he was now rolling on the bed laughing very hard. Dobby had left, promising to bring back news for his Harry Potter sir. That night as Harry dreamed, "Hello Harry." Harry stepped out of the darkness and into the room he had visited before. "Hello. Sir. Father. You may call me father, Harry. Come, sit." Harry sat across from his father and waited. He studied the man and noted that he was dressed in black velvet and wore black leather gloves. His dark hair was greased back. His face was angular and lean. "You like what you see. Why didn't you come for me?" Harry demanded. He remembered being in his cupboard wanting anyone, to rescue him from the nightmare of living with his relatives. Ever since he had been left with his non-magical aunt, he dreamed of being rescued. But each year that hope died just a little more. "Harry, you must remember that your parents wanted a child, to love and raise as their own. Your father, James Potter, was one of my most favored worshippers and so I granted their request. What is time to a god? If I had known, I would have made other arrangements for your care, but your parents really didn't want me involved, so I stayed away." Harry turned and glanced into the roaring fire burning in the hearth. He really didn't know what to feel. "Harry, For me, it was just a blink of an eye since I last saw you as a babe in arms. I am here now. His father leaned closer. I am here, now. What's going to happen to me now? Harry inquired, not looking up at his father. Have you figured out who I am? Yes, sir. It wasn't hard. The Norse symbols around this room. The fact that my dog, James, and the Marauders were pranksters. If my parents had to call on a deity, then who else would answer but Loki, the trickster god? Well done. Loki laughed. Harry sat up in bed, Loki's laughter ringing in his ears as the dream faded. That next morning found Harry and Sirius under goblin charmed disguises visiting several local department stores, buying both of them new wardrobes that fit, before their next meeting at Gringotts. When they returned, the first thing on the goblins' agenda was a complete medical scan of Harry, ordered by Flintlock. Both Sirius and Flintlock were not happy with the way Harry's life had been mismanaged. The only good news was the fact that neither Dumbledore, nor the Ministry, had embezzled funds from the Potter vaults. The only recent withdrawals had been from Harry's trust vault by either Harry or Mrs. Weasley for Harry's schooling. Flintlock hadn't been happy that Harry had given up his key to someone who wasn't blood kin. At least Mrs. Weasley had returned it, and Harry had it with him now. Flintlock did find that the Dursleys were receiving stipends from the Potter vaults for the care of Harry. Harry's response was to be expected. He was livid. Harry, calm down, Prongslet, Sirius yelled, as Harry's magic started to tear through the office. They lied to me, Harry yelled back. They told me I was a burden. I had to earn my keep. Quote, stupefy, Sirius yelled as Harry slumped in his chair. Flintlock forestalled any apology from the wizard as he summoned an aide to his office. When the aide entered, the account manager announced, take Lord Potter down to the healers. Because we had to stun the young lord, we shall proceed earlier than planned. The rest of the day, Harry was poked, prodded and tested. He and Sirius were reassured that all human employees were treated thusly. As for Harry, he wasn't too happy being kept in a private infirmary room. The healers didn't have much good to say about the state they found the young wizard in. Neither Sirius nor Flintlock were pleased with their reports. After examining Harry's curse scar, several healers wanted to forego their vows for E chance to duel Albus Dumbledore and Madame Pomfrey for their lack of care of the young lord. To leave as vile a thing as a soul leech in a pure innocent for over a decade was, in their eyes, criminal and worthy of a death match in the arena. And don't get them started on all the other injuries and scars on the young man's body. To the goblins in the know, Harry Potter was now elevated from young wizard to a worthy, if young and untrained, warrior. Their mantra was, scars make the warrior, and Harry sported several, including having both basilisk venom and phoenix tears in his blood. So we meet again, Harry. His father remarked. Yes, sir. I don't remember falling asleep this time, Harry remarked ruefully as he sat in his chair once more. Father, why am I here? This time, we Avenue a lot to talk about, and there is someone I want you to meet. Hello, grandson, came a deep, warm voice as a figure stepped from the shadows. I am told you have something that belongs to me. Lord Hades, Harry squeaked as he glanced up at the figure dressed in a silver silk smoking jacket with a black ascot around his neck. Yes, Harry, meet your many times great-grandfather, Lord Hades. Loki remarked as a third chair appeared. We, Loki and I, have viewed your life, and I even spoke with your parents in the Elysium fields. Hades held up a hand to stop Harry from asking questions. I must say, for having such a rough time of it, that you managed to survive is a testament to your luck and determination. Demigods rarely live to adulthood as it is. You have been hiding your talents well, boy. Loki interjected. I didn't look closely until I met with Hades. Hiding your intelligence so people underestimate you was a stroke of brilliance. I am quite proud of you. Normally, to be a demigod. Hades took up the conversation. The child is usually dyslexic, can only read ancient Greek, and has what is now called ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. But I have no problems reading. Harry protested. We know, Loki remarked. For that, you can thank your magic. In your case, it would have been ancient Norse runes. But you didn't take ancient runes at your school, did you? Harry shook his head. By the time I realized I didn't have to worry what the Dursley wondered of my education, it was too late. Everyone expected me to be mediocre. I did read and study Hermione's books and notes from her rune class. I found I could understand it without much help. Loki smirked. It also helped to have that soul leech in your scar. It gave you several Abby. Liddy's like being able to read and write modern English as well as being able to speak to snakes, Hades added. Which brings me to why I am here. Hades reached out and from midair pulled a golden goblet to him. Tom Marvolo Riddle has tried for immortality and has almost succeeded. He split his soul into several soul leeches that you wizards would call Horcruxes. You, Harry, have destroyed on and the goblins the one that was within your scar. My compliments, grandson. Hades saluted Harry with his goblet as he took a drink. Loki also saluted as well. Harry blushed and then stammered. The diary. Hades nodded. I can't have mortals circumvent their destiny like that. What Riddle did was an abomination. He's no more than a bug that needs stepping on. And that's where you, grandson, come in. But Dad, I mean, James' only blood adopted me. Harry stammered again. True, but magic deemed you worthy of my bloodline, Hades remarked, waving aside Harry's argument. Normally I don't have much to do with descendants, but Loki called me over to make a deal. What sort of deal? Harry inquired suspiciously. Sorry for the Cliffy. Until next time. GF and the Frau. Chapter 2. Father's World. An anxious Sirius sat by his godson's bedside peering down at the sleeping teenager. Harry was in a healing coma, placed there by the goblin healers. It was deemed necessary, due to the cumulative amount of damage that needed correcting. The healers had no idea when they could release him from his healing sleep. Sirius carded his fingers gently through Harry's hair. The news that he wasn't James's son floored him at first. It never dawned on him that James couldn't father a child. He'd known James had taken a hex or two on his brother's behalf during and after their time at Hogwarts. But for someone to have cast a curse that caused infertility, it was against one of the wizarding world's most sacrosanct beliefs. For someone to have done that to his best friend was not only against the ancient laws, but against everything that the pure blood stood for. Heirs were necessary to pass on the bloodlines and the family magics, and denying an ancient and noble family the ability to produce them saw their family magics lost forever, weakening the whole of the wizarding world. With a soft sigh Sirius wondered, now that Harry had been healed, how much would he look like James? Not that he begrudged the fact of the blood adoption, but he really missed his best friend, and now it seemed like he'd lost the last remaining part of him, all over again. There was so much to do and so little time to do it in. Soon Hogwarts would be letting out for the summer. Dumbledore and the Ministry would be searching for Harry and him in earnest. They had to leave, but where would they go? Disguises should be no problem. Once away from the wizarding world he could go in his Padfoot form, and Harry. His godson no longer glanced like Harry. For one thing, gone was his malnourished, underdeveloped body and weak eyesight. Goblin rituals had cleansed most of the dark magic used upon him. Nutrition and growth potions had been spelled into Harry's stomach every 4 hours and a teaspoon of Skelligro potion once a day, to strengthen his bones as the other potions did their work. The healers also remarked it was a miracle that Harry could see at all. They found that the soul leech and malnutrition were to blame for Harry's poor eyesight. Thankfully, the goblins were able to cure and correct all of it. So, no more glasses, no more scrawny body and no more scar. The goblins had been very helpful and, for the right price, had done everything in their power to correct the past wrongs done to Harry. As the Potters were one of the oldest clients at Gringotts, they'd naturally been appalled by the lackadaisical manner in which Harry's investments had been left to stagnate. These wonders brought Sirius back to the scene in Flintlock's office. From what little they could get out of Harry before they stunned him, the stipends that the Dursleys had been paid out of the Potter vaults never went to Harry's keep. So Flintlock had read an immediate audit of remarked disbursements and he was demanding receipts. It was early yet, but from what Flintlock's staff reported, it appeared Harry was right. The Dursleys spent the money's their nephew's upkeep on themselves and gave Harry the dregs. Sirius wanted those muggles destroyed for what they'd done to his godson. Flintlock agreed, but it would take time. Thankfully, as was reported earlier, Dumbledore and his cronies hadn't touched the Potter vaults. James and Lily saw to that. From the moment of their deaths until the reading of their wills, their high-security vaults would be locked down tight. That must have put a huge dent in the old bastard's plans, Sirius wondered with a small amount of satisfaction. With him being Harry's magical guardian, and sealing the wills, he wondered he would have free reign with Harry's inheritance. In the following days, while waiting for Harry to wake, Sirius and Flintlock were busy managing both the Potter and Black accounts. Dumbledore had been after Sirius to open Black Manor in London as a safe house for the Order. The infamous Black Wards would make it a perfect safe house, but Sirius had been of two minds on the matter. Until today. Now it would be a cold day in hell before he gave them free access to his property. Also, there was no way Harry was going back to the Dursleys. It obviously wasn't safe, as Dumbledore so stridently claimed. And there was also the fact that the Dursleys would be lucky to have a place to live once Flintlock got done with them. He and Flintlock then put their heads together and figured out a way to get Sirius cleared of all charges against him. Several carefully worded letters to Amelia Bones, head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, were sent. Whether or not she took the bait was the question. It was just a waiting game now. Within his dreamscape, Harry learned he didn't have to hide who or what he was. Here he didn't have to pretend anymore. As both Hades and Loki went over Harry's life with him, the two gods weren't impressed with the one called Albus Dumbledore. The greater good should be left up to the gods, Hades remarked with disgust. We will be having words when we meet on his next great adventure. Or better yet, I'll turn your mother loose on him. She really doesn't have much good to say about the old fool. We are straying too far afield here, Loki interrupted. Harry, your time here is almost over. Have we a plan, then? Loki glanced over at Hades. We do, Hades remarked, looking at Harry. You will, as your quest, track down and bring to me the rest of the soul leeches of Tom Riddle. I shall allow you to go to Camp Half-Blood for a year, to train before you start your search. Use the time well, Harry. Harry nodded. I will, sir. Can I call you grandfather? He murmured wistfully. You may, child, Hades agreed. Although it'll make your life harder when my brothers and the other gods find out about you. You know I will not be able to officially claim you as my son, Loki remarked. Odin and Zeus would kill you if they ever find out that I fathered another child. Neither one of them has much of a sense of humor. He finished with a scornful snort. Agreed, Hades remarked, standing with a smirk. But then, I do enjoy rubbing their noses in it. And as you are a descendant of mine with a destiny to fulfill, there is no way I have broken that ridiculous agreement we three made on the river Styx. And Harry, do not disappoint me. I will be watching you. As will I, Loki remarked, giving his son a glare. Do not disappoint us. Quote. Harry gulped and nodded. He was beginning to feel the pull of waking up. And don't forget you must get to the Hall of Prophecy to hear what that manipulative old busybody keeps hidden. Hades reminded him as the room grew dark. Harry opened his eyes to see a very worried godfather watching him. Sirius. Easy pup. You've been out of it for over a week, Sirius remarked softly. As soon as you get your strength back we have things to do. A week later Harry found himself deep below the Ministry. The Hall of Prophecy was just as Flintlock and Sirius had described to him. Flintlock had called in a favor with an unspeakable he knew to escort Harry and a disguised goblin to the hall. Row upon row of crystalline spheres filled the shelves lining the room. The unspeakable left Harry alone after giving instructions on how to retrieve his prophecy. It took only a few minutes for Harry to find a sphere that read, SPT to APWBD Dark Lord N. Harry Potter. Carefully pocketing it Harry returned to his guide and the three left together. In Flintlock's office Harry finally got to hear the prophecy that had ruined his life. The unspeak. Abel, who had accompanied Harry, was told he needed to make an unbreakable vow to not reveal anything pertaining to what he learned in the office. After the cloaked and hooded wizard complied, Sirius Black stepped out of the shadows. It took Sirius several minutes, and a dose of Veritaserum, to assure the man of his innocence and explain the whole fiasco of his arrest and imprisonment. However, before Harry, Flintlock, Sirius and the unspeakable heard the prophecy, Harry was given a calming potion and a stern admonishment control his anger over what they were about to hear. Harry took a deep breath and tapped the sphere with his wand. A vaguely familiar female voice spoke. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches, born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the 7th month dies. And the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, but he will have power the Dark Lord knows not, and either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord will be born as the 7th month dies. Order of the Phoenix, ch. 37. That's it. That's the most asinine piece of garbage I've ever heard. Harry yelled as Sirius and Flintlock glanced around the office nervously. Flintlock did not want another episode like the last one. The Unspeakable sat patiently while Sirius calmed Harry down. It is clear by the cloudiness of the sphere that the prophecy has been partially fulfilled. If it had been completed, it would have totally darkened. The Unspeakable lectured. From the evidence you have given, it seems that Albus Dumbledore is doing everything in his power to see it fulfilled by Mr. Potter, to the possible ruin of us all. Harry wanted to be angry, he wanted to trash something, but he couldn't. Damn calming potion. It all made sense now. Harry glanced at Flintlock. Do you have a pensieve? There's something else you need to know, he remarked. The Unspeakable strode riotously through the ministry toward his superior's office, deep in the heart of the Department of Mysteries. Several ministry employees shivered and got out of the way as the hooded figure charged past. Only when he reached his superior's office did he relax. Once inside the head Unspeakable's domain, he lowered his hood. Croaker, we have a major problem. Faded blue eyes glanced up in concern. RRY and Sirius had been the guests of the goblins for over 3 weeks now. Hogwarts had been out for the summer for 2, which meant there was now a massive manhunt for both of them. Thankfully, the Unspeakables and the goblins were on Harry's side. Amelia Bones, upon receiving Harry's memories and blood-sworn testimony, agreed to work with the goblins from her end. The parchment, signed in blood, testifying to Harry's account of the night Peter Pettigrew was discovered, as well as the memory, had been enough to convince her. She was now digging through the archives for all the records pertaining to Black's case. She wasn't finding much, which also added to the growing evidence that someone Dumbledore, didn't want Black free. She was one very unhappy witch. During their time with the goblins, Sirius claimed headship of the Black family. Since there had been no trial or conviction, the goblins didn't really care, as the ancient laws were quite clear. Sirius Black, as the last direct male descendant, was the head of the ancient and noble house of Black, period. Thankfully, though the ministry had tried in the past to gain access to the Black vaults, Sirius Grandfat had been alive when Sirius had been chucked into Azkaban. With his death, his will had stated that, when the true head of house claims the title and ring, the vaults will open to Lord Black once more. Until that time they are sealed. The goblins informed Sirius that Lucius Malfoy had tried, in the past, to have his son Draco proclaimed head, but the magic refused to accept him, much to the senior Malfoy's ire. Fudge was running his smear campaign against Harry and Dumbledore in the Daily Prophet. The goblin barristers quickly put a stop to it. They pointed out to the newspaper that, 1. They did not have a guardian's permission to use Harry's name in their rag. Nor did they really want to face a lawsuit as, with Harry as the heir of Potter and heir apparent to both the Potter and Black families combined, he was powerful enough to bring financial ruin unto the paper. Rita Skeeter had publicly vowed to find the missing Potter heir and expose him for the attention-loving liar he was. She was summarily put on notice by the goblins: either print the truth or else. She'd been silent on the matter since. Nothing could be done about Fudge. So it was decided to leave him alone, for now. At least the newspaper had been neutralized. The goblins had a firm financial grasp on the editorial staff and wouldn't allow them to print anything that wasn't the truth. One last trip into Muggle London for clothes and personal items, and both Sirius and Harry were ready for the next stage in their escape. They had allowed the attending Unspeakable to report an edited version of what went on in Flintlock's office. Now, with the Unspeakables on board, escaping Britain would be easy. Harry stood in the airport terminal at Gatwick International. He was waiting to board. His usually SSY hair was gelled to stand on end, and each spike was colored in green, red or purple. Dark shades not only protected, but also covered his green eyes. He was wearing a black t-shirt with huge red lips blowing a kiss on the front and black cargo pants. He had a black backpack slung over his shoulder and a headset covering his ears. He glanced like a typical punk kid, bored out of his mind. Surprisingly, Harry Potter's famous hallmark, his scar, was missing. Once the goblins removed the soul leech, it was only a simple scar, the only one that, at his request, they removed from Harry's body. Although the goblins revered scars, as they claimed, scars were badges of glory that identified a warrior, it had been Sirius who argued for removing it as it was too much of an icon. The goblins, always looking for ways to thumb their noses at the wizarding world, grudgingly agreed. Sirius stood waiting with Harry. He, however, was wearing a three-piece business suit and carrying a briefcase, hair and beard neatly trimmed. His time with the goblins had also been beneficial. The effects of his stay at Chez Azkaban had been thoroughly neutralized. He glanced fitter and healthier. Again, he didn't look anything like the wanted posters that Fudge had tacked up everywhere. His and Harry's passports read, Nigel P. Grimm and Evan J. Grimm. No one from the magical world would think twice about the pair. It also helped that both were wearing magical suppression bracelets, furnished by the goblins, to hide their magical signatures and guarantee the safety of the airplane's electronics. In fact, both Sirius and Harry had walked by the magical portal and had not set off any alarms. Even the Aurors on duty at the check-in counters didn't give them a second look. It helped that their wands and magical luggage had been sent on ahead by Air Dobby, who would meet them when they landed. Sirius had been nervous about not having a wand, but they really couldn't do magic on the plane anyways. Oh, it hadn't been hard to talk him around. The one thing Harry was worried about was Hedwig. She was very upset that Harry was leaving her behind. Dobby promised he would take good care of Master Harry Sir's owl. Traveling first class wasn't as bad as Sirius dreaded. Harry slept most of the time or listened to his music through the headphones. Sirius used his time contemplating everything Harry had told him. Loki. Well, it now all makes sense, he mused, our pranking at Hogwarts, our cavalier attitude towards life. That all appealed to the trickster god. How we must have entertained him. Single quote. Gee, was too bad that the Dursleys ruined much of Harry's personality with their abuse and neglect. But then, Harry had pulled off the biggest prank of all. He had kept much of his intelligence hidden, not just from the blasted muggles, but from Dumbledore as well. It was all he'd heard from the Order since Harry's third year. Harry's a disappointment. He shows none of James or Lily's intelligence. He's such a mediocre student. Quote, well, if you were punished for showing up your stupid cousin, you'd learn to hide your intelligence too. Harry did admit that, by the time he was comfortable at Hogwarts, and knew that the Dursleys didn't really care about his grades, it was too late. He then realized that he didn't really want to lose his two friends, so had to dumb down his homework as not to have them jealous of him. Sirius couldn't see any way around the fact they had less than 6 weeks to train and teach Harry what he needed to know. They'd need a miracle. Arriving at Logan International, Boston, was a bit anticlimactic. They were met by a human employee of Gringotts and soon escorted to the Hyatt Regency. Sirius and Flintlock had gone over the itinerary with a fine-tooth comb. The camp they needed to go to was located on Long Island Sound. They figured it would take them about 3 to 5 hours, depending on stops and detours. That night, as Harry slept, he dreamed of being back in the infirmary at Hogwarts. It was morning of the leaving feast. Madame Pomfrey had just dismissed him with strong admonishments to behave himself. She'd kept him in the infirmary on the advice of the headmaster, to avoid the questions and speculations of those still at the castle. Sirius had left him alone at the urging of Remus. Harry suspected the headmaster had something to do with that, too. Hermione and Ron kept exchanging looks but remarked little to him and he remarked little to them. What could he really say, other than he was fine and he really didn't want to go back to the Dursleys? Both Hermione and Ron promised to write, but Harry knew it was a lie. The ride back to London was unusually quiet as the other students steered clear of Harry, which was fine with him. Before Mrs. Weasley met them at the station, Harry sought out the twins. He gave them his winnings from the tournament and told them to use the money to finance their dream of a joke shop. They promised Harry they would. The last anyone saw of Harry Potter was when he walked through the barrier at King's Cross. What no one realized was he didn't step out the other side. Harry Potter vanished. Harry knew that Hi's father had something to do with it, as he had been in a healing coma when the Hogwarts Express had barreled through the countryside, taking the students home for the summer. We couldn't have everyone know you went missing a week before. Now could we? Loki inquired as he stepped out of the shadows in Harry's dream. Nice touch, don't you think, giving all that money to the Weasley twins? I'll need to keep an eye on them. They show great promise. Harry turned towards his father, and as he started to ask a question, the morning alarm went off and he woke up. For those of you asking, yes, Loki was patterned a bit off of Tom Hiddleston's Loki in the Avenger movie. As I have been toying with a sequel, a triple crossover, but it's still on the back burner. Also, for those that think this feels rushed, this was written during NaNoWr, and as such it is completely written, except, maybe, the last chapter, and waiting for the Frau's magical touch. Believe it or not, I got the story up to 30,000 words, so I was well pleased. With so many HP fanfics out there, everyone knows basic canon, so why rehash it? It just bogs the storyline down. Don't worry, it'll slow down some soon. Until next time. GF and the Frau. Chapter 3. Father's World. Again. The story was set between the first two Percy Jackson movies and not the books. Also at this time, there are no pairings. GF. Chapter 3. When Harry woke the next morning at the Boston Hyatt Hotel where they were staying, he found a small ornately carved wooden box on the stand by his bed. Inside was a small bag of oddly shaped coins, a small hourglass, 2 vials of a purple potion, and a map with a note addressed to him. Harry, inside, you will find 1 bag of drachmas, which you will need soon. Also, a map you can use to find Camp Half-Blood. You will need to show it when you make contact with Chiron, the camp director. He will help you get settled once you and your dog father arrive. Next, you will find 2 vials. They will give you the ability to read and understand ancient Greek. As a descendant of mine you should be able to. It is in your genetic makeup, but my blood has been too diluted and your sire's blood will have overridden it. This will help you and your dog father fit in better at the camp. Your sire was concerned about the amount of training you need. I took it on myself to handle that little problem as I am more qualified to assist you. The hourglass is filled with the sands of time. Turn it once and you will go back 1 year. Once you do, the hourglass will automatically return to me. I stepped back a year to set up a bank account with those pesky goblins under your alias as Evan Grimm. They knew of this when you contact them in the past a year from now. They won't mention it for fear of causing a time paradox. Use the money well. Although you are my grandson by magical blood adoption, I really don't have to claim you, but you have impressed me with your sheer determination. Know this, Harry, too. M. Riddle is an abomination who has denied me my due and needs to be destroyed. I have great plans for him, once his complete soul is presented before me. Do not fail me in this quest, grandson. Once you get to Camp Half-Blood, I know that you will be placed in the Hermes cabin. Do not worry, when the time is right, I will acknowledge you as my grandchild. Be careful. Your dog father must remain as a mutt. Mortal adults really are not welcomed at the camp unless invited in. It is for our children's protection, for his it would be best if he kept to his dog form. Use these gifts in your extra time well. I will be watching, as will your sire, your grandfather H. A quick trip into the Salem Magical District was needed. Sirius, with a sigh of resignation, accompanied Harry as Padfoot. However, he did object with a growl when Harry bought a collar that would force him to stay in his dog form unless Harry took it off. But he really couldn't argue the reason behind its use. It was dangerous binding his magic like that, but was worth it to stay with his pup. It was only until Harry was claimed and was transferred into the Hades cabin at camp. Once there, they would have some privacy and Sirius could occasionally be in human form. With everything set, Sirius gave Harry a quick lesson on how to drive a motorcycle with a sidecar. A short time later and they were off, cruising the back roads to Long Island Sound. Harry was disappointed. He wanted to use the flying ability of Sirius' motorcycle but wondered better of it. Even though he was not a true son of Hades, Zeus would still have fit if he found Harry in the air and would try to kill him. If Harry ventured too far into his realm, there was a definite possibility Zeus would blast him from the sky. It was a pity. Harry loved flying, and really hated to give it up. Maybe if he explained to Zeus, he would allow him to continue to fly. Harry followed the map Hades had provided. It led them to a strawberry farm surrounded by a white picket fence and lots of tall pine trees. Harry paused by the side of the road to study his map. In the sidecar was a scruffy, oversized wolfhound with almost glowing blue eyes peering through goggles. "Well, Padfoot, the map says to turn here and follow the path until we get to a very tall pine tree. The entrance to the camp is just beyond that," Harry remarked, looking around. He could almost feel the magic in the air. Something was nearby and it had to be protected by a very powerful ward. Padfoot huffed in agreement from the sidecar. His shiny new collar sparkled when it caught the sunlight. He wore the aforementioned goggles, an aviator cap and a scarf, which flapped in the wind as they cruised down the country roads. Harry wondered he glanced like that cartoon dog that pretended to be a WW1 fighter ace. Harry stopped at the tallest, straightest pine tree he had ever seen. It also seemed to be the anchor for the strongest wards he'd felt outside of Hogwarts. Harry dismounted the bike as he took off his and Padfoot's helmets and removed his gloves, his eyes scanning upwards at the pine tree. Padfoot moved to sniff around the tree and then let out a low whine before he moved to stand by Harry. Just past the tree was an archway with two burning brass torches on either side. On the keystone of the arch ancient Greek letters were carved. "Camp Half-Blood," Harry read aloud. The potion worked as promised. Not only did it give Harry and Sirius the ability to read ancient Greek, it allowed them to speak it. "This is the place. Now what?" Grabbing Padfoot's collar he walked towards to the arch. Harry could feel the wards as they stepped through. If he hadn't had a hand on Padfoot's collar he wasn't sure the Grim would be allowed to enter. They got about 100 feet into the campgrounds when they were surrounded by teenagers, all wearing orange t-shirts and pointing swords and spears at them. "Who are you?" demanded a blonde-haired girl. She seemed to know what she was doing as she pointed her sword at him. Evan Grimm, and this is my dog, Padfoot. I'm to see Mr. Chiron. My grandfather arranged for me to come here," Harry remarked, keeping a tight hold on Padfoot's collar as the dog was growling at the girl threatening his pup. "Hold." Harry turned and saw a centaur racing towards them. He and Padfoot exchanged a dumbfounded look. "ND father never mentioned Chiron was a centaur." "Evan Grimm," the centaur greeted. "I am Chiron. Welcome to Camp Half-Blood." The ring of teens lowered their weapons as the centaur took charge of the situation. Harry, lips quirked in a half-grin, gave a slight bow. "Are you going to tell me Mars is bright tonight?" Chiron straightened his back, a bit surprised. "You have encountered a centaur before. By your accent I would say, British." "Wizard." Harry nodded again. "Yes sir." "Padfoot, behave, sit." He let go of the dog's collar to pull out his map and note. "I was told to come here." A dark SK-in teen stepped out of the crowd and sniffed. Harry noted that the teen had a pair of small curled horns peeking from his curly black hair and from the waist down had fur and cloven hooves. "Yeah, he smells of a demigod." "Don't recognize the scent, but definitely a demigod." He glanced nervously at the huge shaggy black dog. "I hope he's housebroken." "Thanks Grover," Chiron remarked as he scanned the note and map. "You and your pet are welcome to stay at the camp. You will be staying in the Hermes cabin until your deity parent claims you." Chiron took Harry and Padfoot to a large white house and made them comfortable. A wild-haired looking man was sitting in the corner with a bottle of wine and a crystal brandy snifter filled with water. He was shouting at the ceiling. "Not now Dionysus, we have a new camper." "Evan Grimm, meet Lord Dionysus, the camp director," Chiron remarked. The god of wine and madness sighed as he tried to pour more wine into the goblet only to have it turn to water. "Welcome to the insanity, Ernie Graham." The disgusted director glared up at the ceiling and yelled angrily, "That was a perfectly marvelous vintage port, I'll have you know." Chiron leaned over to whisper into Harry's ear. "He never gets the names right. So don't let it bother you." Zeus cursed him after a bit of a tiff on Mount Olympus. Dionysus sneezed. "Who let the dog in? Get rid of it. It'll spread fleas all over the place." Thus went Harry's introduction to Camp Half-Blood. Harry and Padfoot easily fit into the Hermes cabin. While he settled in, he learned that Hermes was the Patron god of travelers and the messenger god. He was also known as the trickster god to the Greeks. Harry had to hide a smirk when he heard that. He hoped that Hermes didn't find out who his deity father was. Harry didn't think he would survive the prank war. It was a bit crowded in the Hermes cabin, and Padfoot had almost been caught in his true form twice so far. Harry couldn't wait to move to the Hades cabin. But he had to wait for his grandfather to decide when to claim him. One of the things Harry learned, and found amusing, was all of the children were demigods like him. Some knew who their deity parent was and lived in cabins designated for that deity. And, like Harry, some were still waiting to be claimed. Clarice, the bossy girl who had almost skewered him at the entrance, and a couple of her siblings, tried to dunk Harry's head in a toilet. The key word was tried. Harry, too used to dodging his cousin, as well as Padfoot taking exception to the manhandling, foiled that prank. Instead, Harry managed to douse her with remarked toilet water using a bit of wandless magic. He later found out that she was a daughter of Ares and she liked to pull that stunt on all newcomers. Another thing Harry found odd happened at meals. The campers set aside a bit of food from their plates to offer in the flames to their deity parent. They don't, and can't eat the food, but they love the smell of it burning. He had been told, so Harry offered not one but two small sacrifices, one to Hades and one to Loki. He refused to explain. He hoped the double offering would find favor. At tea, end of July, Harry was startled when he walked into the camp's common ground where campers ate and socialized. He was greeted with slaps on the back and cheek kisses. Shouts of, "Happy birthday," echoed across the commons. How the Aphrodite cabin found out it was his birthday he wasn't sure, but he did have a suspicion. The night before, he had stayed up, as he usually did. Harry knew he wouldn't receive any gifts from his Hogwarts friends, but it was tradition. When he finally fell asleep, Loki was waiting for him. "Happy birthday, my son," Loki remarked, offering Harry a toast from his drinking horn. "To the start of a new beginning. Soon you will be of age." Harry bowed, blushing slightly. "Thank you, Father." Calling the Norse god Father was becoming easier now. He even glanced forward to their nightly chats. He really hadn't had anyone to take an interest in his doings before. "Your gift is waiting for you when you awake, my son. I had the dwarves craft them especially for you. Use them well." "Thank you, Father. I shall." The Norse god spoke of what he expected Harry to learn in the weeks to come. He would be visiting Harry in his sleep, along with the spirit of James Potter. Harry's education had been severely lacking, thanks to the Dursleys and that interfering old wizard. However, Loki would see that any oversight was corrected and Harry had better learn if he knew what was good for him. The next morning Harry found a bracer with a pair of throwing knives sheathed within it by his bed, along with a letter from Loki stating that he wondered Harry could use them better than a sword. They were charmed to always return to the bracer after they'd been thrown. "So, Evan?" inquired a black-haired, blue-eyed camper as he sat down beside Harry, bringing Harry's wonders back to the present. "How old are you now?" 15, Harry remarked, and it was true. He was 15 today, or rather repeating his 14th. He so wished he was back in Great Britain celebrating with his friends, but he couldn't be. It was forbidden. Since he only had the one family member, Uncle Nigel, who was supposedly off on a business trip, the camp decided to throw him a birthday party. Uncle Nigel sent a gift-wrapped package. Inside was a book that read, "The Marauder's Handbook." Not in this lifetime, Harry wondered. When it came time to cut the cake, he cut 3 slices, one for Hades, one for Loki. Both of which went straight into the fire, and one for himself. As the cake burned, the symbol of Hades appeared over Harry's head. "All hail Evan, son of Hades," Chiron announced into the stunned silence. "Actually, grandson of Hades," came a voice. A man dressed in a FedEx agent uniform stood to one side holding a small brown package in one hand and a caduceus in the other. "Lord Hermes, welcome," Chiron remarked with a slight bow. "What brings you to this camp?" "I have a special delivery for one Evan J. Grimm," the messenger of the gods stated. "I understand today is his birthday. Evan, here, is the grandson of Lord Hades as well as the son of another. Lord Hades informed me that Evan's sire wishes at this time to remain unknown and has inquired that Evan be courted to his cabin for the remainder of his stay at the camp. He has a quest that he must train for. Lord Hermes held out the package. Sign here. He pointed to his clipboard. Harry did and took the package. Lord Hermes left in a bit of bright light. Insides the package was a note, thanks for the bit of cake. Persephone so enjoys the smell of chocolate cake burning. Happy birthday, grandson. Use this well, your grandfather. Quote. Inside the package was a moving portrait of James and Lily Potter. Lily was obviously pregnant in the wizarding photo. Beneath it was a book titled, The Potter C.L. and Grimoire, in faded gold embossed lettering. Harry was thankful that it was in Old English and not Ancient Greek, as it would have been hard to explain. Harry knew this was one of his better birthdays. Harry and Padfoot had the whole cabin to themselves. So Sirius could, at night, be, well, himself. He talked to Harry about his parents and grandparents. How Charles and Doria Potter took him in and he ran away from home at the age of 16. Harry drank up the stories avidly, like a thirsty man in the desert. No one had ever really spoken much about his family, except he glanced like James, but had his mother's eyes. The days were spent learning up at the big house. Lessons were taught in the standard curriculum for the educational system of New York State. Harry didn't mind. He could use most of it when he returned to Great Britain as a foundation to get his GCSEs. He had to study with modern course books that were written in ancient Greek, but found it to be no problem. Now he understood why he'd had to take that potion. He had to be able to read and write in ancient Greek to do the homework, as all demigods were, by nature, dyslexic and unable to read or write modern English. Afternoon was taken up in physical training. Harry found himself being drilled in almost military-style boot camp training. Seems there were monsters in the world that found demigods tasty snacks. RRY had to be prepared for all manner of attacks, which explained the throwing knives. They were beautiful in design and had Celtic knotwork inlays. They were also perfectly balanced. Harry quickly learned to hit the target and was becoming quite proficient in their use. One of the things Harry enjoyed the most about the camp was that he was almost unknown. Something he was coming to enjoy. Most of the staring was reserved for a kid about his age who, like Harry, lived by himself in the Poseidon cabin. According to several rumors and what he found out from Chiron, Percy Jackson was the son of the sea god, and that was a clear violation to the pact the Big Three made. Big Three? Harry inquired when he had heard it. Yes, young Evan, Chiron explained. Zeus, Hades and Poseidon. He vowed on the river Styx to have no more children after the Second World War. You, young Evan, are a legacy and not part of that vow. He felt sorry for Percy. He reminded Harry of himself in the wizarding world. All the expectations were on his shoulders and no one really cared to help. Clarice and the rest of the Ares cabin rode Percy and him pretty hard. Even Harry's grandfather didn't care too much for Percy, but he did have a grudging respect for the demigod. It wasn't every day that a demigod got the better of the Lord of the Underworld. It was getting close for many of the campers to return to their homes, as the new school term would be starting soon. Harry found Percy sitting by the bay, talking to the water. Percy had lost yet again to Clarice on the obstacle course, and she had rubbed his nose in it. Harry came to sit by his new friend and didn't say anything. I know he's out there, listening, Percy remarked. I discovered him not that long ago. He hasn't been in my life much. I grew up thinking my parents were drunks and shiftless, Harry responded quietly. Until I turned 11 and went to the private boarding school that my parents had attended. There I found they were not at all what I'd been told. Harry had to do a lot of editing to the story, but he could tell Percy most of it. Having famous parents as well as being famous for something they did, ally plays havoc with a person, and Harry could easily relate to Percy's situation. Percy didn't say anything as Harry continued. I found out that my parents were killed for standing up to a terrorist and his gang. My stepdad was a member of a special force that deals with terrorists. He and my mum were in hiding when they were betrayed by a close friend turned traitor. I was sent to live with my aunt, Mum's sister, and her husband. She hated my mum. Mum was prettier than her, married better, and she was afraid that the terrorists would come after her and her family. Percy nodded. Mom married smelly Gabe to hide me. I just wish my real dad had been around. I know, Harry remarked wistfully. Growing up, I wished someone, anyone, wanted me. At least you had your mum. They fell silent for a time, both lost in their own wonders and the companionship of another who understood. For those that think we are bashing Dumbledore, what? We, Frau and I see Albus Dumbledore as a senile old wizard who is past his prime. And is so into believing his own press he is making mistakes and failing to learn from them. We may poke fun at the venerable old wizard from time to time, but that's it. We cannot help that Sirius' wonders are a little too harsh. The man did spend 12 years in Azkaban. He isn't thinking pleasant wonders. If you don't like it, then don't read. As for Zeus and Odin's opinions on demigods, we are just following canon. We feel that Zeus would not be too pleased to have a Norse demigod mingling with his Pantheon's demigods. We won't get into Odin's dislikes. Until next time. GF and the Frau. Chapter 4. Father's World. Chapter 4. Harry was nursing his left side where he'd been slammed into by a rampaging mechanical Colchis bull. 2 hours ago they were eating lunch when they were attacked. The huge mechanical construct had torn through the camp, leaving bodies and scattered wreckage in its wake. Who would have wondered an animated metal bull could cause so much damage? He limped up to a tall camper with dreadlocks and sunglasses. Tyson, Percy's half-brother, had arrived at the camp just before the protective wards surrounding it had fallen. Personally, Harry liked Tyson. The tall teen reminded him a lot of Neville with his shy, gentle manner. That is, if you glanced past the single hazel-colored eye and the sandy-brown dreadlocks. From what Harry understood in his lessons with Chiron, Cyclops, like Tyson, were fabled, one-eyed monsters that ate demigods. So why wasn't Tyson considered a monster? Harry stood with the remainder of He able-bodied campers as they examined Talia's tree. Annabeth explained that Talia was a demigod daughter of Zeus who sacrificed herself to save Luke, Annabeth and Grover from 2 giant cyclops who were chasing them. For her sacrifice her father turned her into the great pine tree that stood guard over the camp and served as the anchor for the now defunct wards. The clock was ticking. Someone had poisoned Talia's tree and the poison was slowly eating away at the tree's life force. This was causing the wards to weaken. It was only a matter of time before they would fall. Harry knew he would use whatever knowledge he had to help. Harry stopped Percy, Annabeth, Grover and Tyson as they were sneaking out of camp after dark to follow Clarice on the quest for the Golden Fleece. Hey, wait a bit, Harry panted as he ran up to them. I can do something that might help you. He gestured towards Tyson's pack. Shish, keep it down, dead boy. Percy whispered anxiously as Annabeth scanned about. Harry grinned as he cast a silencio on Tyson's clunky, noisy backpack. He then handed Annabeth a small wooden box that contained several capped vials. These are healing potions. Instructions for their use are on the labels. The vials are charmed unbreakable. Don't lose them. Good luck, Harry remarked. Come back safe. He watched silently as they faded into the trees. The next morning at break AF. Harry offered to help Chiron heal Talia. He wasn't too sure if he had enough potions knowledge to be of use, but he had to try. He knew that Zeus, like all of the Greek gods, held a grudge, so he only had one shot at this and it better be a good one. So at breakfast, he offered an extra sacrifice to Zeus, the god of the sky, explaining that he wanted to help if he could. He wasn't sure if what he was going to try would work and inquired the deity not to be upset with him if it didn't. After eating he sought out Chiron, who was already busy working on a cure. Chiron, do you think this will help? Harry offered up one of the bezoars he always carried with him. What is this? Chiron held up the odd-looking stone to the sunlight, examining it. Harry explained what it was and how it was considered a universal antidote for most poisons in the wizarding world. You think it'll work? You say one has to swallow it for it to work? Yes, sir. I don't know how we can get it to work on Talia's tree. Since you can't make her swallow, but if you can think of a way. Harry inquired hopefully. Also, I know a couple of healing and neutralizing potions that might help. But I don't have all the ingredients here, so I'd have to make a trip to Salem. Thank you for the gift of hope, young Evan, the centaur remarked, as he wondered for a moment. A rumble across the clear sky caused the pair to look up. It would seem that Lord Zeus approves of your quest. Be careful. Sirius had been relieved when Harry decided not to go with Percy and Clarice. Harry had enough on his plate as it was and didn't need to go herring off on another adventure. So of course, he'd been worried. They left for Salem as soon as Harry finished talking to Chiron. If they hurried, they should be back by nightfall. The potions would need several hours of brewing time, so Sirius knew they were in for a long night ahead. Sleep was secondary, Talia's life was at stake. While they were in Salem, Harry wanted to pick up some ward stones and books on warding. The camp really needed a backup plan for protection and Sirius agreed. Some advanced books on runes and arithmancy for his nighttime classes would also be useful. Harry had explained that his parents and his sire were tutoring him every night in his dreams and he was now up to his grade level in ancient runes and arithmancy. So Sirius planned on collecting the books while Harry gathered potions ingredients. Thankfully, the apothecary had all the ingredients Harry needed, and with Padfoot's help, he bought several other ingredients or potions he wondered Talia's tree could use to help fight off the poison. The Bell, Book and Candle Shop had several good books on warding, potions and new books on runes and arithmancy that Harry wanted. The credit card that the goblins gave them after they went back in time worked well, they didn't have any problems using it. A quick stop through a fast food place with golden arches took care of their dinner. Harry always wanted to try the place because Dudley had bragged incessantly about their delicious hamburgers and chips. Padfoot ate 2 of the sandwiches called quarter unders, and begged longingly for more despite Harry's protests that too much grease was bad for dogs. The trip back was uneventful and they made good time. Harry did wonder if the gods were helping him with how fast he made it back on the motorcycle with no interference from the police. With Chiron's help, and Padfoot supervising, from under the table, they brewed a potion he found in one of his new books that might help. The brewing took all night and in the morning, Chiron, along with Harry and a group of campers who were awake that early, went to Talia's tree. "O great Zeus, we offer these potions up to you for your blessing that it may help heal your daughter, Talia. We pray that it works, if not, we pray it will at least slow the poison so that those on the quest for the golden fleece may return in time to save her." The centaur yelled up to the heavens. Another deep, rolling rumble echoed across the cloudy sky as Chiron carefully poured the potions onto the areas most affected by the poison. However, the poison was too widespread for the potions to work completely. At best it slowed the spread and bought them time. "Damn, it spread through the night," Harry groused as the potion stopped a small area of the poisoning. "I so hoped this would work." He sighed. "Take heart, young Evan. It is helping, hopefully it will buy us enough time. See here, where the potion touched, the bark is coming back," Chiron remarked as he pointed out the patches slowly turning from an unhealthy shade of green to a healthy brown. "We gave the questers more time and we still have extra ingredients for another batch. Come." Another ominous rumble echoed across the heavens. Harry winced. He hoped Zeus wasn't too upset with this failure. "He is not angry at you, young Evan," Chiron remarked, reading the teen's despair as he ushered Harry back into camp. "You tried to help and that is all one can do. He is upset that another of his children is in such a dire strait. Come, have breakfast and then get some sleep. We'll try again this afternoon. Hopefully Clarice and Percy will be back by then." It was a few days and several potions later that the questers returned with the golden fleece in hand. Harry and the rest of the campers were very relieved to see them. The potions had temporarily halted the poison spread and with the fleece they brought, it finished the job. Talia's tree was saved. What was more amazing was that Talia, herself, was also saved and freed from the roots of the tree. That night, Harry dreamed of Olympus where the lords Zeus, Hades and Poseidon were sitting on their thrones. "Well done, Harry Potter. Yes, I know that you are going by Evan Grimm. It is of no matter. Hades has given me surety of your personal quest and I approve," Zeus remarked, as he glanced down at the nervous young wizard. "Although your potions did not work as well as you had hoped, it did slow down the poison enough for the quest to be successful." "Well done." "Yes, well done," agreed Poseidon. "The spells and first aid kit you gave Percy and Tyson were most useful during the quest. They were not required of you, but you have my gratitude for your help to my Sons. Hades just offered a wink and a salute with his wine glass. We offer you a boon, Harry Potter. Ask anything within reason and we may grant it to you, Lord Zeus boomed regally. Harry glanced up at the three powerful Greek deities. He knew he was walking a very fine line here. He knew that his grandfather Hades had knowledge of his father, and Harry was well aware that the Norse and the Greek gods really did not get along. He could go from Olympus's darling to Olympus's main course at the next feast if he was not careful. There is something I would ask, Lord Zeus, ruler of the skies. Why? Oh, you have seen my life in the wizarding world. You know that I love to fly. It is the one pleasure that makes my life there bearable. Now that you are aware of my heritage. Harry paused, hoping that he was doing this right. And if it please you, all I would ask is to be able to fly. To soar the skies without upsetting you. Zeus laughed, as did Poseidon. Well, you did call it true, brother, Poseidon remarked, looking at Hades. He would ask to fly. That is because I have seen him on his broomstick, Hades remarked. He is sheer poetry in flight. To clip his wings would be a disservice. Granted, Harry Potter, you may fly without any reprisals from me or any of the gods, Zeus announced. This, however, doesn't mean you are privileged with my favor. I am granting only this small bow. On for your help in saving the life of my daughter. And I have seen you fly as well. Hades is correct, it would be an injustice to deny you this. The glow of absolute joy that suffused Harry's face brought a chuckle from the watching deities. One last warning, Harry Potter. Do not betray the trust we have given you, Zeus cautioned. I have yet to discover who sired you. It is only on my brother's surety that you are allowed to train at Camp Half-Blood. Remember that. We are watching you. Summer turned to autumn. Harry had now completely caught up to, and surpassed, where he should have been. In the old timeline as far as his studies went, Halloween was in a few days. Harry missed the many campers that populated the camp during the summer. Most had returned home at the beginning of the fall school term. Since Chiron knew of Harry's magical abilities, he urged Harry to enroll in correspondence courses through Salem's Magical Academy as well as the home school program offered by the state of New York. Harry was now able to keep up with his magical studies as well as the mundane, which designation Harry preferred to Muggle. If he had problems, he brought them to his parents at night in his dreams. Loki was pleased at how well Harry took to their tutoring. During the day Cyrus helped where he could, but he was very limited by the amount of time he could safely spend in his true form. James Potter, with hands-on help from Sirius, taught him wizarding customs and etiquette. Something Dumbledore had very much neglected to teach Harry. With the Potter grimoire now in his possession, Harry was able to learn a lot about his family history and legacy. He now understood his parents' driving need to have a child. If he had not been born, all of the history, all of the knowledge of the Potters would have vanished. Lost to the world forever. When Halloween finally arrived, Harry had to explain to Chiron and the others why he hated that particular holiday. Well, nothing good has ever happened for me on Halloween, Harry explained, beginning with my parents being murdered when I was 1 for a start. Man, that sucks, remarked Grover, munching on a caramel apple, stick and all. Harry had quickly learned that satyrs were very goat-like in their appetites. They'd eat just about anything put in front of them and chase anything female that caught their eye. The camp always held a big bonfire for Halloween. Supper that night consisted of fire-roasted hot dogs and gooey, melted marshmallows on a stick. Several hot dogs, marshmallows and chips were offered up instead of their normal fare. Harry made his usual double offerings. He really wasn't in the mood to celebrate, so after that he moved away from the bonfire. Harry watched from a distance as the rest of the campers enjoyed the bonfire. Talia, who had been healed by the Golden Fleece, was sitting with Artemis hunters. He was happy that she was back among the living. He was even happier that the gods were not angry with him for being at Camp Half-Blood. Slipping farther from the noisy celebration, Harry pulled out everything he needed to do a Samhain ritual. He wanted to remember his parents, who had fallen to evil while trying to save him, and this was how James told him to do it. He was sure Hades wouldn't mind. Due to the thinning of the veil, this was the one night it really could be performed without repercussions. After making sure he would not be interrupted or spied upon, Harry cleared a small area and drew a ritual circle with one of his daggers. He then lit 2 candles and a small brazier he'd borrowed from camp supplies. Once everything was ready, he made his offerings to the gods. Padfoot sat at his feet, whining softly. "Shish, Padfoot, if this works you'll see them as well." "Ah, Harry," came Lord Hades' voice from the fire. "I figured you would be calling tonight, of all nights. I see you brought along the mutt. Grandfather, please accept my offerings and allow me to speak with my parents," Harry inquired, ignoring the disparaging remark about his godfather. "Don't you speak with them just about every night in your dreams?" Hades inquired. "Yes, sir, but tonight was the night they died and it is also Samhain. Besides, Sirius would like a chance to make amends with them." "Very well, I accept your offerings, grandson. I am pleased with your studies, and yes, you may speak with them until the fire dies down." Out of the small fire stepped the corporeal souls of James and Lily Potter. Sirius transformed as well. The next hour was spent in hugs and tears with Sirius and James, getting reacquainted after all the heart-wrenching grief and "can you ever forgive me" speeches. Lily and Harry stayed mostly on the sidelines, her arms never leaving their place wrapped around Harry's shoulders. Although they talked just about every night, this was real. Hades had allowed them to leave the underworld until the fire died. The hours sped by, and as the glowing embers died down, James hugged his son one last time. "Even though I am not your sire, I am so proud of you, Harry, my son. I wish your mother and I had been there to watch you grow up. Now that Padfoot has gotten his head out of his ass." Quote, "DAAAADDDD. James Charles Potter. Prongs. Time to go," Lily remarked, giving her son another hug and a kiss on his cheek before they faded from sight. Sirius and Ari didn't leave the clearing until dawn broke through the trees. Padfoot was never really at the cabin for long periods of time anymore, much to Harry's amusement. It seemed that the nymphs that had remained at camp adored him. They liked to give him baths, and comb out his fur, and of course, Padfoot milked it for all it was worth. So Harry couldn't resist teasing his furry godfather and had managed to prank him a few times by turning his black coat a shocking shade of pink. Even that did not deter the nymphs from exclaiming how cute Padfoot was. Dionysus, or Mr. D, got pranked a few times as well. It seemed that he had angered Zeus by going after a nymph that was off limits, so Zeus cursed him by making sure Mr. D could not drink anything but water no matter what he tried to pour into his glass. For some reason, even Zeus wondered it was funny when Harry had switched Mr. D's wine glass with a Coca-Cola glass that sang, "Put the lime into coconut." Mr. D never did find out who did it. He tried to punish the whole camp, but that only made the pranking worse. Harry wasn't the only one that liked to do a bit of mischief. Of course, Loki wondered it was hilarious, as did Hades. All was on the cusp of turning into winter. Harry made a few trips up to Salem for course testing and to do a bit of shopping. Christmas was fast approaching and he needed winter gear. Percy invited Ari to come visit him in New York for Thanksgiving. Harry didn't want to intrude. Besides, being British, he really didn't celebrate a holiday called Thanksgiving. But Percy's mother sent a persona L invitation and Chiron gave his approval as well. So Harry accepted. He couldn't refuse her kindness, after all. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, Harry arrived at their apartment. He met Percy's her and took an instant liking to Sally Jackson. Padfoot came along and made himself comfortable on the rug in front of the telly. "Percy says your dog is housebroken. Will he be all right in the living room?" "Sure. Padfoot may be big for a wolfhound, but he's gentle and fully house-trained," Harry commented. "He has the nymphs at camp fawning all over him." "Yay, Mom," Percy agreed, snatching up a handful of warm from the oven biscuits. "That dog of Evan's is almost the mascot of the camp. Even helps when there's trouble. So Evan, how are you enjoying living at the camp year-round?" Sally Jackson inquired as she turned in the small kitchen to finish working on her prep for the feast the next day. "It's been wonderful so far, Mrs. Jackson," Evan remarked, as he and Percy followed her in. "None of that, call me Sally," she remarked, pulling the last batch blue sugar biscuits out of the oven. Harry's eyebrows went up at the sight, until it was explained Percy liked eating blue foods, hence the blue biscuits. The next day Tyson, wearing his special sunglasses to mask his single eye, Grover, sporting a pair of crutches to hide the fact he didn't have human feet, and Annabeth showed up for the feast. For a few moments, Harry was reminded of his time at the burrow with all of its chaos. However, here there was no magic helping with the stirring of sauces, or talk of Quidditch, or explosions echoing through the apartment. Still, Harry couldn't help comparing the two. If inquired, he would say he preferred Sally's apartment. It was less chaotic. Tyson took off his glasses. Veer removed his fake shoes and leaned his crutches against the front door. Annabeth and Percy, along with Padfoot, were watching the Macy's Thanksgiving parade on TV. It was too cold to go watch it on the streets and easier for Percy to explain to Tyson, with Padfoot listening in, how they managed the huge air balloons without shouting over the noise of the crowds. Harry helped Sally in the kitchen. At first, she refused. But when she saw how adept he was at breakfast, she allowed it. Harry enjoyed it immensely. Sally wasn't Aunt Petunia in the kitchen. She didn't expect him to make the bulk of the meal as his aunt would've. They chatted about many things and, later, for the life of him, he couldn't remember anything they discussed. When he and Padfoot returned to the camp Sunday night, he couldn't help but be thankful for his life now. Christmas was coming fast. Harry found himself caught up in the festivities of the camp. He put a lot of wonder into his gifts this year, although High's mind kept wandering to what was happening at Hogwarts. The Yule Ball would be coming up. The first task had already happened. There was nothing he could do about it. He couldn't help himself in his old life. At least Padfoot could be counted on to make things interesting and keep his mind on the here and now. The latest chaos happened when Padfoot sneaked into the Aphrodite cabin and ran rampant, rummaging through the girls' lockers. He was seen wearing a doggy grin and a couple of the more frilly unmentionables, as the girls from the cabin chased him through the common area. Harry had to deal with the fallout as suggestions ranging from a muzzle to castrating the mangy mutt were bandied about. "It's been suggested a few times," Harry commented as he glanced down at the drooling, unrepentant wolfhound. According to Remus, Snape had called for Padfoot's immediate castration several times in the past. In the end, Padfoot was chained in Hades' cabin, howling his protests loudly. "Well, you brought it on yourself, Padfoot," Harry remarked as he magically locked the chain. "Oh, quit whining. It's only for a week. Be thankful Chiron didn't kick you out." Harry was able to convince Chiron to let him take Padfoot away from camp for the holidays. With Christmas just a few short days away, Harry had a lot of shopping to do. So under their goblin disguises, Harry and Sirius hit downtown Salem with a vengeance. For Hades, he bought a vintage bottle of Ogden's Finest and a box of Cuban, hand-rolled cigars. He even got Persephone a box of Godiva chocolates and a crystal rose. She was Hades' wife and didn't really like him for being a legacy of his bastard children. Harry only ever had one true wish, and that was for a family. He hoped she could understand that wish and accept his gift in the spirit it was given. For Loki he decided on a bottle of Ogden's Finest and a box of mundane jokes and pranks. If what he had read about the Norse gods, and had learned of his sire, Loki would put the pranks to good use. Just as long as no one learned where he'd gotten them. Harry really wished he could be at Hogwarts. He hadn't spent a Christmas away from the school since he found out he was a wizard. Oh well, at least he was relatively free to come and go as he wished. So, he turned back to shopping and managed to pick out a few more presents. An older couple ran the bed and breakfast that he and Sirius were currently staying at. They were friendly enough. When they found out that Harry had no family and this was his first Christmas outside of Britain, they made sure that he knew about all the local holiday events that he shouldn't miss. Harry and Sirius enjoyed their stay. 'Twas the night before Christmas and Harry was just outside of Salem in a small grove of trees away from traffic and people. Harry made sure he would not be disturbed as he stood in front of a small campfire. Beside him were two intricately carved wooden boxes. "Lord Hades, Lord Loki, please ACC. EPT these gifts from your son and grandson. Lady Persephone. Inside the gift to Hades is a gift for you. Please accept them in the spirit of Christmas and Yule." Harry knew he was throwing alcohol into the fire, but he was sure that before the boxes exploded, they would be whisked to their destinations. He threw flow power into it first and yelled, "The underworld, Lord Hades, throne room. The box for Hades disappeared into the green fire. He did the same for Loki's box but yelled, Asgard, Loki's chambers. That night, Harry dreamed of finding himself in his grandfather's throne room. Merry Christmas, Harry, Hades remarked, raising a glass of Ogden's finest in salute. And thank you. Yes, Harry, thank you. A beautiful woman glided over to where Harry was standing. You do know the way to a woman's heart. She kissed him on the cheek. Harry blushed and stammered. Hades chuckled at his grandson's discomfort. You will find your gifts from me when you awaken, his grandfather remarked. Now off with you. I am sure your father wants a word with you. Expect a gift from me as well, Harry. Persephone smiled as she raised her glass of wine as well, giving him a sly wink over her glass rim. The scene shifted as he then found himself standing in his father's chambers. His offerings were on Loki's lap, the Norse god of mischief grinning as he rummaged through the box muttering. Oh, what a perfect way to embarrass Thor. And this for the Allfather. Wonderful, so childish, so simple. Harry cleared his throat as he stood by the chair he normally sat in. If the only thing he ever learnt from his father, it was to give respect to those that are more dangerous than you. Oh Harry, happy Yule, Loki remarked, setting the box aside for later. He motioned Harry to sit. Thank you for such a wonderful Yule gift. He poured 2 drinking horns and handed one off to Harry. Skoll, happy Yule to you, father. Skoll, Harry remarked as he saluted back. He had learned that anything he drank in demigod dreams would affect him in real time, so he had to be careful of Asgard grog. You will find my gifts to you when you awake, my son, Loki remarked. They will serve you well. I am foregoing your lessons until after the New Year. The Allfather expects me to attend all the Yule festivities here, so I must. Your studies will resume when his eye is off of me. Harry nodded. He wished his father could acknowledge him, but the Allfather had decreed that Loki couldn't father any more demigods. It was bad enough that 2 were prophesied to bring the end of times. You have caught Thor in his cronies' eyes, Harry. Much coin is exchanging hands as they watch in interest, the Tri-Wizard Tournament, Loki explained. With their attention on your former exploits, they don't notice that I am teaching you. Harry awoke on Christmas morning. He and Padfoot were once again invited to Percy's for the holiday dinner. He really didn't have much time to open presents and get to the Jacksons. Harry hadn't been able to see any of the Disney movies as the Dursleys refused to allow anything that used the M word in their homes. He did not recognize many of the characters, but at least he did know Mickey when he saw him. First were the gifts from his grandfather and father. From Hades, Harry received a new arm sheath for his throwing daggers made from the skin of a basilisk. According to the note attached, once you put it on, grandson, it'll blend into your skin. No one will know it's there. Use it well. Harry noted that it would hold his wand as well. Not that he needed his wand much these days. He had learned to focus and control his wandless magic now that it had been unblocked. From his father, Harry received more throwing daggers and books on how to cast illusions. Study these well, Harry. I will be testing you on how well you use the talents you inherited from me. Harry was surprised to receive a letter from Persephone. I thank you for your gifts, young one. With this note I send you 2 of my pearls. If ever there is need you may drop one, crush it and be instantly transported to the foot of Hades' throne. Use them wisely. Sirius and Harry exchanged their gifts. Harry gave Sirius a gift certificate to Spencer's Gifts, which is one of the go-to stores for adult pranks, gag gifts and odd toys. For Padfoot, he got a new dog collar and a shampoo kit. So you think I have fleas, do you? Sirius inquired, chasing his godson around the room. Nah, Padfoot, I just wondered you would like something different when the nymphs get hold of you again. Harry giggled as he ducked away from him. The trip to Percy's didn't take as long as normal. Harry may have cheated a bit and used the magical boosters and stealth modes on the motorcycle. Percy and Annabeth were already there as well as Grover and Tyson. It was almost like Thanksgiving all over again. Padfoot took up the space in front of the telly. After the meal, and the dishes were in the dishwasher, gifts were exchanged. Harry had never felt like he belonged as much as he did in Percy's apartment. He never felt like this at the Burrow. Molly Weasley had nothing on Sally. Mole Lee had a more smothering and demanding personality. Sally made everyone feel welcomed and wanted in her home. Harry could also see the reason why Poseidon had fallen in love with her. Harry knew that he needed to enjoy the holidays while they lasted. All too soon, he would be back at his studies. For those asking, no, the Avengers are not in this story. GF is thinking of a sequel with them, but she hasn't written it yet. Please stop asking. This is based on the movies and not the books, so Nico and Bianca will not be in this story. Sorry. Until next time. GF and the Frau. Chapter 5. Father's World. The week between Christmas and New Year's Day, Harry and Sirius spent at Disney World. He had heard so much about it from the other campers and that older couple from the B&B and decided that EK was the perfect opportunity to check it out. What Harry discovered was that Disney's magical kingdom held no true magic, but it did have a charm all its own. He also discovered that the tall, dog-like character called Goofy intrigued Sirius. Harry found he preferred the human-like mouse named Mickey. The ecstatic teen and his childlike guardian rode as many rides as they could during the DIETY and caught all the shows in the evening. The Tiki Room was an eye-opener for Sirius, as was the Bear Country Saloon. That they did it all without magic was mind-blowing. The highlight for Harry was he had a photo taken of himself with all 5 of the storybook princesses. 2 of them bestowed a kiss on his cheeks as the picture was snapped. Sirius' personal favorite photo was of himself in a large white rabbit and his buxom wife. Space Mountain was another eye-opener. That non-magicals could imagine and then actually go into space was beyond anything Sirius believed possible. Over the holidays he studied a few of the books his sire had gifted him with. He was determined to learn to control his demigod abilities. All too soon it was time to return to Camp Half-Blood. Harry hadn't dreamed any demigod dreams over the holidays. His sleep had been deep and peaceful. Harry had seen a lot of the campers use their talents freely and was very glad he was allowed to use magic here as well. It was different than that used by the others in the Hecate cabin, but no one cared. Being the grandson of Hades caused a few problems with some of the campers, but since Harry was a legacy he was pretty much left alone. And it didn't hurt that he was growing stronger physically each week with all of the extra training. Of course, the other campers wondered just who Harry's deity parent was. There were speculations and bets going on. Harry had to pretend he didn't know. He was afraid there might be definite repercussions if he was found out, possibly even his death. So he had to be careful. The Hades cabin was just the way he'd left it before Christmas. Chiron allowed Padfoot to go free when they returned. It seemed that the Aphrodite cabin forgave Padfoot for now. It seems someone gave several campers gift cards to Victoria's Secret and Macy's, Chiron explained with a raised eyebrow and a very pointed look. Several of the more affectionate members of the Aphrodite cabin were fawning all over the shaggy wolf hound. I wonder who did that? Harry inquired with an innocent roll of his eyes. Try to keep him contained, Evan. Thus the new year started. Harry began to practice the illusion talent he inherited from his sire. It was hard to control an image of himself and make his true body invisible at the same time. Like all things magical, it took hard work and time. He practiced this skill privately in the Hades cabin as he wasn't too sure if Loki had a Greek equivalent, and if he did, Harry was sure he didn't want to encounter him. His magical training had also taken a new twist. At James's urging, and to Lily's dismay, Harry was being encouraged to take on an animagus form. With Loki being a shapeshifter, not an animagus, Harry soon noticed there was a definite difference to the methods used. Animagi were usually only able to take one animal form after a long period of studying. A shapeshifter wasn't restricted to a single mundane, or magical, animal, and shifting was far easier and quicker. So with his sire's permission and some extra advice from Sirius, Harry worked on shifting. He was certain with his demigod abilities that he had at least 2 forms, a normal one and possibly a magical one. Thank Merlin and his sire, Harry wasn't super smart or all-powerful. That would have been too much for him to deal with. He knew he inherited his mother's intelligence and Loki's cunning. But he wasn't Hermione. He didn't have her drive to know everything. No, Harry was very relieved that he wasn't super smart, or even super magical. The goblins had found THREE blocks on his magic before he went into the past. The first his mother Lily had placed on him. When he started his training he inquired her about it. She told him that he was a very precocious child, and it was placed to keep him from doing dangerous accidental magic. She couldn't keep up with him otherwise. The second block had a powerful magical signature. The goblins believe it had been Dumbledore. This block had the blood wards tied into it, and it was using Harry's own magic to fuel them. The third was more of a mind-over-magic block. It had been placed on Harry by himself. If a child is told constantly he is worthless, a burden, a freak of nature, well, it was obvious that he would believe it after a few years. Harry only wanted to belong, so he subconsciously subdued his magic to meet his relative's idea of normal. This block was the hardest to remove. He had to believe in himself and in his own abilities before it could be done. With those blocks finally gone and his magic freed, Harry mastered everything that his parents taught him, and with only a little over 6 months left before time came full circle, he was ready to move on to fifth-year studies. It was the day of the second task, in his old life. Harry was a bit depressed as he remembered the isolation and the events of that time. With so few now at the camp, and the cold weather, it was very hard to focus on outdoor training. Padfoot knew what day it was and tried to distract his godson, but it wasn't working. If Harry was like this for the second task, then he would be a basket case for the third. The day of the second task, Harry was even more focused and more determined to prove himself. Spring. The last of the snow had finally melted. As there still weren't many at Camp Half-Blood, most activities were in small groups inside. It was Friday, however, and with the melting of the snow came spring fever. To help with the nervous energy and longing to be outside, Chiron called for a game of Capture the Flag. 2 teams were chosen, the Ares cabin against all comers. Thankfully, Artemis hunters were not in camp, as it would have been very one-sided. They always won. Ever since the failed King Harry and Clarice always maintained a friendly neutrality, even more so after his aid in saving Talia's tree. Despite the fact that she was still a bully, she was a daughter of Ares after all. Harry, however, wasn't too fond of the rest of her siblings, which was why he decided to put into practice everything he had learned. He volunteered to be a scout on the opposing team. "No offense, tough girl," Harry taunted. "I'm going to so own you in the Ares cabin when we're done." "In your dreams, mophead," Clarice yelled back. "No one beats the Ares cabin." So the game was on. "Remember," Chiron instructed, "the creek is the boundary line. Everything in the forest is fair game. All magical items are allowed. The flags must be prominently displayed and can have no more than 2 guards. And they are not allowed to stand within 10 yards of the flag. Remember, no killing or maiming is allowed. Punishment for breaking any of these rules is a loss of dessert for 1 week." Chiron's horn sounded and the game was on. The forest just outside the camp held some pretty nasty monsters and rough terrain. Harry donned his invisibility cloak, cast scent-suppressing and silencing charms before moving silently through the forest. He was scouting out where the enemy flag might be placed. Padfoot sat whining beside Chiron and watched Harry go. He always found the children of the Ares cabin a bit overzealous in their bid for power and glory. In his opinion, they were far too full of themselves. When the old dog wasn't perving on nymphs and those in the Aphrodite cabin, he was pranking the Ares cabin. He wasn't allowed to participate, not after the first time Harry played. He had taken both flags and run off with them. They didn't find the flags until the next day, half buried by Talia's tree. A roar in the distance suggested that one team ran into a hellhound. Harry shuddered. He hoped whoever had to deal with it wasn't too badly hurt. Monsters were fair game and they regularly patrolled the forest, attacking unwary campers. This would be the first time Harry used his illusion talents against anyone. He had kept it mostly hidden and practiced it in secret. Not surprisingly, NY campers did the same thing with their own abilities. It was encouraged. Any advantage was to be treasured. The flag was easy enough to find. Harry dodged several patrols and a couple of monsters before he stumbled across it. Perfect. He scanned the area and found what he was looking for. A small squirrel rested high up in the trees watching the humans. Below, with a wave of his hand, the squirrel was transformed into a small monster. Another spell and a sudden roar echoed, causing the guards to look nervously around. Still invisible, Harry just walked up to the flag, and while the guards were busy with his distraction, he took the flag, tucked it under his cloak, and left an illusion in its place. Game over. Harry strolled from the forest, flag casually propped over his shoulder, and presented it to Chiron. The centaur simply shook his head and blew his horn, ending the game. Clarice was fit to be tied. She sputtered and threatened, but couldn't deny that Harry had captured the flag, about a half hour into the game. Harry knew he had to make a special sacrifice to his sire for his win. He was almost ready to leave. Summer was here and the camp was filling up once more. Many of the demigods who had left last fall to return to family and school were now back. Harry still had the Hades cabin to himself, which was just as well. He liked the privacy. He never had it before, either at the Dursleys or at Hogwarts. Someone was always looking over his shoulder. Sure, he had Padfoot with him now, but the mutt spent most of his time down with the nymphs and satyrs. He knew his time at Camp Half-Blood was coming to an end. He had learned everything he needed to, including the wizarding customs, etiquette and laws that his magical guardian was supposed to have taught him when he was growing up. He remembered Neville telling all about the lessons his gran made him take before he went to Hogwarts. Also, he now had complete control of his illusion talents and his magic. Since he was blood adopted into the Potter line and the blood of Hades was so dilute, he didn't really inherit anything from the Lord of the Underworld. He did have the invisibility cloak he inherited from Ignotus Peverell. It was one of the Deathly Hallows, and if he could find and reunite the three, he would supposedly become the Master of Death. Harry had to scoff at that. No mortal could be the Master of Death, as death came for everyone. Besides, Thanatos was the son of Hades and a distant uncle to Harry. He could see it not going down well if he did try to lord it over his immortal uncle. He would miss being at the camp. Being just Evan Grimm with no expectations. At least, he didn't have to leave until the day after his birthday. He would have his 15th birthday all over again, even though in reality he was 16. It was the night of his birthday, and it had been a wonderful day. The Aphrodite cabin had gone all out for Harry's birthday with cake, balloons, and a bonfire in the evening. Harry stood by the fire and offered the first 2 pieces of his birthday cake to it. "Thank you, Father and Grandfather, for my year," he remarked silently. "I hope I do you both proud." The moment the cake hit the fire, it flared up. A fiery bat-like creature came up out of the flames. "Grandfather," Harry remarked with a slight bow. "Ah, grandson, happy birthday. I have a gift for you," Lord Hades responded as he threw a fireball at Harry. The fireball landed at Harry's feet, and when it died down, the box that Harry had given his Christmas present to Hades in sat in the middle of the scorched earth. "Tomorrow," Lord Hades announced regally, "you will be leaving to start your quest." Tom Riddle split his soul into 6 parts. 2 have been retrieved. His last was made last spring. "Grandson, you have done well in your studies, but it is time. Inside the box you will find what you need for your quest. Bring me the rest of Tom Riddle's soul for judgment." Lord Hades exploded into flames. Campers screamed and scattered until the bonfire died down to normal. "Hey Mop Head." Harry, who had cautiously opened the lid and pulled out an army-style compass, ignored the campers around him. The needle pointed not to north but to the east towards the ocean in Great Britain. Harry grinned. "This'll help big time." Also in the box was a gaudily wrapped gift with a tag reading, "Happy Birthday, Persephone." "Hey Mop Head." Harry ducked as a swing went over his head. "Oi, so this is the great quest you needed to train for?" Clarice inquired in a huff. Harry sighed as he glanced at the compass. "Yay, I was given a year and it was up last month. So that means you are doing this alone." "Pretty much. This was my quest from the start, and no, tough girl, you can't come," Harry remarked, slamming the lid shut. "But, no, leave him be, Clara," Mr. D chided, coming to stand beside the girl. "If Hades says Ernest goes it alone, then that is the way it must be. It is curfew. Everyone back to their cabins." And so ended Harry's time at Camp Half-Blood. Harry left just after breakfast, the same way he arrived in Sirius motorbike. Evan Grimm and his uncle Nigel traveled back to Great Britain in style. He really didn't need to disguise himself this time. Anyone from Hogwarts, or the Order, would not recognize him as Harry Potter. Harry Potter was short, underweight with messy black hair and green eyes behind a very unbecoming pair of glasses. He also knew he wouldn't meet himself coming back, as he had already left to go to the past 2 weeks prior. With a resigned sigh and a shake of his head, Harry wondered. And people wonder why time travel isn't done often. The time in the past had been good for Sirius as well. The rest had done the former marauder good. He had managed to put on weight and muscle. Those nymphs knew how to party. It had been amazing that no one other than the Big Three had known just who Harry and Sirius really were. The trip back to Great Britain by plane was uneventful. Harry spent his time listening to his CDs while Sirius slept. That old dog could sleep anywhere. A worried Remus Lupin paced impatiently as their plane taxied up to the terminal at Gatwick International. A few days ago, he had finally received a letter from Padfoot, forwarded to him by the goblins. He had been worried ever since Padfoot had disappeared the night that Rye returned from the third task a few weeks ago. Then Harry disappeared at King's Crossing when the Hogwarts Express brought all of the students home. He hoped Sirius had news of their cub. Moony hate DIETY keep secrets from the Order, but the goblins were not known to trust many wizards. They also didn't care about the current state of affairs in the wizarding world. He watched as a man and teen walked through the terminal. At first he didn't quite recognize them until they were only a few feet away. Although Sirius' hair color was different, he glanced well rested and had put on considerable weight. Sirius Black no longer glanced like the wanted posters. Then the teen walking with him. It couldn't be. This Harry was taller and healthier than the one he remembered from a month and a half ago. "Hey Moony," Sirius called, waving to his friend. "Hello Professor," Harry remarked. Remus took Harry and Sirius to Gringotts. In the office of the Potter's account manager, Flintlock, the trio began to hash out what to do next. The first thing was to get Remus to swear a wizard's oath covering all matters that were discussed in Flintlock's office. Once that was taken care of, their discussion proceeded. "Well, Lord Potter, you look 10 times better than you did when you left my office 3 weeks ago," Flintlock remarked, after Remus swore the oath. "Thank you, Flintlock," Harry remarked. "I enjoyed my time in the past. I was sad to leave it. Time halts for no one, Lord Potter. You know that. Time is also money. Now that you have taken an interest in your vaults and been declared an adult, I am now able to diversify your holdings." Remus, who had been included in the meeting, spoke up. "What do you mean declared an adult?" "Tell me, Remus," Sirius remarked, patiently, with a knowing smirk. "What happens when 3 headmasters of the 3 premier schools in Europe and 1 ministry official declare that a 14-year-old has to compete in a tournament with a magical contract that states only those 17 years or older can compete? They did make Harry compete, didn't they?" Remus inquired, wondered fully. "Yes, that would mean they, de facto, declared Harry an adult. So Harry claimed his titles and vaults then." "There's more," Harry remarked. He explained that James Potter wasn't his biological father. James and Lily wanted a child desperately and had tried everything until finally they did a ritual. It took some telling, but Harry managed to tell the whole story up until having the timeline come full circle. Remus sat open-mouthed and stunned through the whole explanation, not really able to form any coherent questions. He did look over at Sirius occasionally, who nodded in agreement. Yes, it did happen. Harry held up the compass that Hades had given him. At first glance it glanced like an ordinary army compass, but any object created by the gods was far from ordinary. It was pointing at Flintlock and it read, "Soul Leech," and gave the coordinates. According to this, Harry remarked, a bit puzzled. "There's one not far from where I am sitting, and almost a mile below." Flintlock grumbled and stood. "Come, we must follow where this leads. We goblins want no such abominations in our vaults." The compass led them to the vault of Bellatrix Lestrange. Flintlock cursed and summoned the director of Gringotts. A quick debate in gobbledygook and a small cup, carefully wrapped in silk, was withdrawn from the vault. "We will be fining the owners of this vault for breaking the treaty. Housing a dangerous artifact within our bank is strictly forbidden. That vault will be sealed until such time as the owner can be reached. Cleanse this object as fast as you can and return it to the vault," the director ordered. "If I may," Harry remarked, "we can do it in Flintlock's office. All I need is a brazier and a fire, and it'll be done." Puzzled, the director agreed and demanded he be allowed to watch. A brazier with a small fire was set up. Harry stood in front of it with the cup levitated in front of him. Lord Hades, I offer up this soul piece as a part of my quest to bring your eternal judgment on Tom Marvolo Riddle. Please accept this offering, and if it please you, return the cup untainted by this dark and foul magic, so that I may return it, undamaged, back to where I have found it. He dropped the cup into the ordinary fire. The goblin sneered. No, why was the cup going to be cleansed in such a small fire? A puff of smoke emitted from the flames and the priceless cup rolled out of the fire. Harry handed the undamaged cup to the bemused director of Gringotts with a slight bow. All taken care of, Director. Lord Hades, Lord of the Underworld, is most put out with our current Dark Lord. 2 stunned and awed goblins bowed to Harry. So I see, Lord Potter. Thank you for protecting the honor of Gringotts, the director remarked, taking the cup with shaking hands. It wasn't long before he and the cup left the office. Remus Lupin glanced over at his surrogate nephew and shuddered. It was all beyond him, and maybe, just maybe, that was for the best. To question a couple of questions. No, Loki will not be evil in this story. A couple of reviewers commented on the Hades cabin. Frau and I haven't read all the books and we're going by the movies. Sorry for the confusion. To the guests that like to ask questions and not give any way for us to contact them. Our pat answer to those is, the answer is either 3 or 42. Take your pick. We never remarked all PJO crosses sucked. We simply remarked that we were disappointed in those we've read so far. We haven't read all that are offered yet, please don't put words in our mouths. Until next time. GF and the Frau. Chapter 6. Father's World. Chapter 6. Due to the goblin's tireless efforts, Harry quickly received emancipation in the Muggle world on his return. No more Dursleys. It was a few weeks after the freak disappeared, and Vernon Dursley still wasn't a happy man. He had been sent an official notice from Gringotts Bank that they were being audited due to irregularities in their financial records. What really puzzled him was he had never heard of the bank. And to make matters worse, he had to take the day off of work and wait for some barrister bloke to speak to him and his wife at his home. Couldn't make a bloody appointment at a bank office. He glared at the short man sitting at their kitchen table. He had introduced himself as F. Locke, account manager, Gringotts Bank. Vernon watched with a raised brow as his wife went ghastly pale. Just what is this all about, Mr. Locke? Vernon demanded, glaring at the figure sitting across from him. We don't bank with you. Vernon. Petunia stuttered weakly. Mr. Locke was a short, stocky man wearing a very expensive pinstripe business suit. He glanced every inch a successful banker. He pulled out a file and laid it on the table. You received £500 sterling each month for the support of your wife's nephew, one Lord Harry James Potter. We are calling in all the receipts on the expenditure of these monies for Lord Potter's upkeep. Vernon. You told me, we received nothing for the freak. Petunia screamed. You never told me. Be still, woman. Vernon snarled, raising his hand threateningly. And what the bloody hell do you mean, Lord Potter? He growled at the calm man facing him. Sitting back in his seat, Mr. Locke was quite disgusted with the scene playing out before him. It seemed that Lord Potter was quite correct in his opinion of his relatives. However, before things got too heated, a pasty-faced, severely overweight teen ran into the house. He was shaking like a leaf and glanced like he had just seen a ghost. Piers. Gagagagordon. SSSSSSSOOKKKKKK cold. He spat out before he collapsed in a quivering heap on the tile floor. Later, Flintlock reported to the DMLE that 2 Dementors had appeared in Surrey and kissed 2 Muggle boys. They had almost kissed Harry Potter's cousin as well. Flintlock explained he had been visiting Lord Potter's relatives due to some irregularities in the young wizard's vaults. He had finally managed to drive off the foul creatures and now NDED to know who had released them in a very populated Muggle area. The only wizard living in the area was Lord Potter, and in his opinion this had been a murder attempt on one of Gringotts' most influential clients. Not to mention the danger to himself as he was acting on bank business. While Flintlock was dealing with Harry's former relatives, Harry was cruising along the back roads of the English countryside. Padfoot wasn't with him, much as they both might have wanted it. Besides Padfoot, Harry had assured his godfather, "I was trained for this." Both Remus and Flintlock had agreed that it would be better, and less suspicious, if Harry went on his quest alone. It was decided Remus would take Sirius back to Grimmauld Place. When Harry had finished the third task, Sirius had offered his mother's old place to Albus as a headquarters for his secret little bird club. Over the summer Sirius told Harry that his parents had been a part of that group. "The Order of the Phoenix it was called," he remarked. "Sirius, you know you really shouldn't have told Harry this," Remus chided. "He's much too young." Dumbledore remarked that when we find Harry, he had to be returned to his relatives for his protection. He doesn't want Harry to know these things until he is older. "Know what?" Sirius inquired. "Know how to defend himself. Know about the way the Dark Tosser managed to escape death. Or know that Dumbledore is setting Harry up to be a sacrifice." "He would never." Remus started to protest. "Then why did he leave me to rot in Azkaban when he had the power and evidence to set me free?" Sirius yelled at his friend. He knew, Moony, and yet he kept his pet Death Eater out of that hellhole, but he refused to lift a finger for me. Remus didn't have an answer for that one. The last time they'd spoken Albus Dumbledore was still maintaining there was nothing he could have done. With the help of Flintlock, memories of that night in Harry's third year when they confronted Peter, and memories of the third task were being sent to Madame Bones. Harry had included sworn statements from himself and Sirius, signed with a blood quill. Lastly, a copy of the original Potter will, that Dumbledore himself had sealed, also made its way into the hands of the head of the DMLE. The local paper in Surrey reported, 2 youths found in a comatose state on a village playground. It is unknown at this time whether or not they will recover. The investigation is currently at a standstill. No witnesses have come forward. One teen, Dudley Dursley, was seen running from the playground. Drugs are suspected. Harry had set up camp outside of Greater Hangleton. He knew he was close to another Horcrux, maybe 2. The compass was pointing towards Little Hangleton, so he had to be careful. He found a small copse of trees off one of the side roads near the small village. As far as he could tell, there was no obviously magical residence in the area. He would explore the area more, tomorrow. With a shiver, he recognized this place. He was close to the cemetery where Riddle had used his blood to regain a body. The compass was pointing in 2 different directions, one at the rundown manor on the hill, and over on the other side of village. He pitched his wizard tent in the copse. It was like the one he slept in during the World Cup with the Weasleys. This one, however, was smaller. For one person or maybe a couple. It had a kitchen area, a common area, a loo with a bath and shower and a small bedroom with a king-size bed. Just right for his purposes. Harry enjoyed the experience. It reminded him of Camp Half-Blood. Supper was stew, bread from a local bakery and a butter beer. He hoped his father and grandfather liked butter beer. He also contemplated while he ate whether or not he should ask Dobby to join him. He could make this spot his home base while he did the scouting, but it would be better if he had someone keeping an eye on things in the tent. Why not? Dobby. His call was followed by a quiet pop. Master Harry Potter, sir, called for his Dobby. The oddly clad house elf inquired when he popped into the tent. Yes, I did, Harry remarked as he finished his stew. I need your help. I wills do anything for you, Master Harry Potter, sir, Dobby agreed, bobbing his head while he bounced madly at Harry's feet. Harry chuckled as he pushed the empty bowl away. Listen to what I need you for. Uis is the great Harry Potter. Uis has finally come into Uis powers. Dobby is honored to work for you. Dobby snapped his fingers and the empty bowl was clean and returned to the kitchen. Harry sighed. I could use your help with this tent. I know that the Dark Tosser has hidden one of his soul leech containers near here. I have to find it. But I need someone to watch over this tent for me. Make sure no one finds it. My needs are pretty simple. Dobby cans dose that for Master Harry Potter, sir, while he's is on his business. Dobby bone. Ced happily as tears ran down his cheeks. So the deal was struck. Harry went to bed knowing that Dobby would tidy things up and make sure he was undisturbed. Finally, 2 days later Harry removed a ring from the run-down shack his compass led him to. Snakes were everywhere. Having retained his parcel tongue, Thanks to his sire's blessing, it wasn't much of a problem getting in or out. The problem rocked up when he first discovered the compulsion spell demanding he put the ring on. It was tempting, but his demigod status, plus the fact he really didn't want to get that close to the ring, saw him levitating it into a silk bag. That night, he offered up the bag with the ring inside to his grandfather. Hades, pleased with the offering, returned the cleansed ring. That night, Harry was informed, in his dreams, that it was the resurrection stone. Now Harry had 2 of the Deathly Hallows. All that was left was the wand. The other location in Little Hangleton, Harry was sure, was the dilapidated old manor on the hill. The compass was telling him there were 2 soul pieces there. Probably Riddle and his snake. Harry knew he couldn't go after them both at this time. Harry and Dobby left Little Hangleton soon after that. Harry did send Sirius a note saying that he had found one and it'd been destroyed. Padfoot, found one. Grandfather was most pleased. One very demented house elf has attached himself to me. Found where 2 more are. They must wait. On the move again. Will write later. Mop head. The compass led him to Hogsmeade next. It was pointing towards the castle. Damn, he wondered. That one will have to wait until term starts. If I go in there now, I'll tip my hand. Besides, now that I've claimed my demigod status, I'm sure those oversized spider monsters would like a piece of me. Nope, this one will have to wait as well. He turned his back on that one and reset his compass. The next lead was on the coast. According to the compass, it gave off a very faint signal, like it was there, but wasn't. The cave opened to the ocean. The water was unusually calm. It barely rippled with the tide. After hanging around Percy and Tyson, both sons of the sea god, Harry knew this wasn't natural. He pulled out a drachma. In a nearby rainbow formed by the spray of the waves hitting the rocks, he dropped it in. A female voice spoke. Whom do you wish to iris message, please? Percy Jackson, Camp Half-Blood please. In the rainbow and mist a picture formed. Harry, forgetting the time difference, realized it was late evening there. Percy was sitting with Annabeth by the campfire. Hey seaweed brain, Harry called out. Percy startled and glanced around. Spying Harry, Percy called back. Hey mop head. What's up? I hit a snag in my quest. I need help from someone that knows his way around water. Interested? I'll pay for your visit. You know Zeus would zap me out of the sky if I board a plane, right? Percy inquired as a bit of thunder rumbled in the distance. Harry, spying Annabeth beside Percy, continued. I know a way you can get here without being spotted. You and Annabeth are both welcome to come over. I know Annabeth wanted to see the Tower of London and Stonehenge. My treat. After dropping 2 more drachmas into the rainbow, Harry and Percy firmed up a plan. All he and Annabeth had to do was get to a certain bank in Salem. Harry would do the rest. Harry waited in Flintlock's office for Percy and Annabeth's arrival by port key. He was going over the reports and statements that Flintlock had prepared for him. You mean this undersecretary wanted to please her boss, Fudge, by getting rid of me? So she sent 2 dementors to my relatives to have me kissed. And no one was aware they went missing. Merlin, sounds just like the bloody idiots. That is correct, Lord Potter. It was only by chance I was visiting your aunt and uncle that day. I recognized the aura of the dementors and called for the DMLE. They had to take immediate action, or face creamy, null charges by the director of Gringotts. I was there in the performance of my duties as your account manager. If I had been attacked by those foul things, it would have incited another goblin war. Harry scowled as he went over the report. So what happened to this undersecretary? Well, she was slated to be your next defense instructor at Hogwarts. Flintlock snorted in disdain. However, she is now facing a term in Azkaban for unleashing them in the Muggle world. They added violation of the Statute of Secrecy to the list of laws she broke. Harry wondered back to second year when Dobby T. Reed to keep him from going to Hogwarts and shuddered. So she sent them because she wanted to please the minister. Why? You know that the ministry does not want to acknowledge that the Dark Tosser has returned. This Umbridge creature wondered she could silence you and make the minister happy. So was she a Death Eater? Hardly. Although she likes to spout their propaganda. She has a strong hatred for anything not pure blood. She's the one who rammed all those werewolf laws through the Wizengamot. Harry snorted and put the report to the side. If she isn't going to be the next Dada instructor, who is? That moment, Percy Jackson and a very beautiful blonde-haired teenage girl were ushered into the office. Percy Jackson and Annabeth Chase. Just arrived by Port Key, remarked the goblin aide. Hey Mop Head, Percy remarked as he greeted his friend. That was some ride you whipped up. Thought me and Wise Girl were in a food processor for a moment. Evan, Annabeth remarked as he peered around the stone-walled office. Actually, it's Harry Potter, Harry remarked, looking a bit sheepish. I had to go by another name over in the States. Too many people were looking for me and so I used an alias. Chiron knew about this, Percy inquired, a bit peeved at the deception. Not exactly. He knew I was hiding something. Since I was under my grandfather's protection there wasn't much he could do about it. Harry assured them, and if Mr. D knew, he wouldn't have used my real name anyways. You know how he is. Flintlock sat back in his chair and watched as the three demigods got caught up on the latest gossip. Then Harry explained the quest he was on. The goblin was amazed at how the trio switched from airheaded teenagers to veteran warriors in the blink of an eye. And that was what these teens were. Veteran warriors who had seen battle. He felt fortunate being in the same room as them. So you found something with a water trap and that's why you called me? Percy inquired. Yep, I know Annabeth wanted to visit and have me show her around London. So how about it? You in? Sure, Mop Head, Percy remarked. Anyone that's split his soul is just too creepy and needs to be taken down. Says someone that has a cyclops for a half-brother and kills monsters. Seaweed brain, Annabeth remarked. Harry took Percy and Annabeth to the leaky cauldron. There was no fear of him being recognized. Without his signature glasses, taller and healthier, Harry glanced nothing like he did when he left Hogwarts 2 months ago. It also helped that his hair was spiked and gelled. He knew he glanced good and no one would connect him with the old Harry Potter. After a quick bite of lunch and hashing out a plan, the trio walked out into the streets of London. Harry held out his wand. Bang! A purple triple-decker bus appeared out of nowhere. Oi, them are muggles, a pimply-faced conductor grumbled. Well, one o' you's muse, be a wizard or ya quant summoned the night bus. I'm Stan Shunpike your conductor. 13 sickles will get you's hot chocolate, with 15 a toothbrush, new, N.A.O.T. water bottle. Hello, 3 to the Mewstone Caves, Devon, please. Harry pulled out 3 galleons. Keep the change. We just ate at the Leaky so don't need the hot chocolate, thanks all the same. So who are you free? Stan Shunpike queried. Ernie, you forgot ta change from night ta day again. Evan, Percy and Annabeth. Harry introduced them. We need to get to Devon as fast as possible. Percy and Annabeth watched a bit stunned as the made-up beds changed to easy chairs. Harry led them to the back of the bus and placed sticking charms on the 3 of them. Hang on, you're in the ride of your life. For the next hour, the trio experienced a ride straight out of an insane amusement park. Harry was glad he remembered the last time he rode the bus and wondered about applying the sticking charms to the 3 of them. The shrunken head, Dre Head, yelled out warnings to Ernie much to the amusement of Percy. Annabeth and Percy compared the night bus to the taxi service of the Grey Sisters as they were thrown around. In their opinions, the 2 modes of transport were a dead heat. They explained the sisters only had one eye between them and wondered what Ernie's excuse was. They finally made it to Devon without an accident. A lot of near misses and a few extra bruises, but no parts missing. Harry led them down to the mouth of the cave and on inside. Dark magic still radiated from the glassy water. There's something in the water, I just don't know what, Harry RKED as they stepped into the main room of the cave. There are bodies in the water. Annabeth screamed after a closer look. Inferi, Harry gasped. Inferi, Annabeth questioned with a puzzled frown. They're animated corpses, Harry explained. Percy, slowly remove the water from the cave. Try not to disturb it too much. Fire is the only way to destroy the bodies of Inferi. Don't let them bite you. Harry quickly threw up some shields to protect them. Percy raised a hand, and with a gentle wave the seawater slowly flowed out of the cave without causing a ripple, exposing the bodies. Harry promptly set the cave on fire. The Inferi started to rise, only to burst into flames as Annabeth threw in some Greek fire grenades to help. They waited until the fire died down before going farther within. They found a small island at the back with a stone and crystal basin on a pillar. "That's not water," Percy remarked, peering into the basin. Harry shattered it with a quick reducto. At the bottom of the ruined basin was a silver locket. "This is a fake," Harry snarled, holding up the locket. "The Horcrux was here but it was taken away. I can still sense the dark magic residue." "That is correct, grandson," Lord Hades remarked. Stepping out of shadows created by the flickering flames with him was a shade. "Thank you for giving those souls peace. I can now finally judge them and send them on." "Harry Potter, thank you," whispered the shade. "I inquired Lord Hades for a chance to speak with you. Harry, this is Regulus Black, your Dogfather's brother," Lord Hades explained. "You need to listen to what he has to say." Percy turned to Annabeth and mouthed, "Dogfather." She hissed and waved him off so she could hear the conversation. "I died here but couldn't move on as my body became part of the trap," Regulus sighed. "I retrieved the original locket when I discovered what the Dark Lord was doing. I stole it back, but the Inferi attacked me and couldn't finish the task. On my final order, Creature took it with him and still has the real one. Tell my brother, he was right and I am sorry. Help Creature destroy that abomination, and kick the Dark Lord's ass." "I will, sir," Harry promised, before turning to Hades and gave a slight bow. "Thank you, grandfather, for your help. I am proud of you, Harry." "Percy, Annabeth, I will ignore your presence here since you aided my grandson." Harry escorted Percy and Annabeth around England, as promised. Since the Dursleys never took him anywhere on their vacations, the trip was a treat for him as well. It was too bad, they only had a week before their return portkey went off. He took them to Stonehenge. As they were leaving for the day, they saw a troll coming out of a tunnel under the road. Percy and Annabeth sighed. Of course, you get 3 demigods out in the open, and a monster was bound to show up. Thankfully, they were among the last visitors to leave the historical site for the day, so there weren't many people around. Percy and Harry made quick work of the troll, and thankfully, the fight didn't go near the monolithic stones, so there was no lasting damage to the site. Once the troll was dusted, Harry quickly obliterated all those who saw the fight. They had a nice time seeing the Roman baths in Bath, Loch Ness and Edinburgh. Dobby and his hyper-enthusiasm took some getting used to. They slept in Harry's tent. After Dobby expanded the bedroom and added bunk beds, Percy and Annabeth marveled at the wonders of magic. "I wonder, maybe we can convince Chiron to get a couple of house elves for camp," Percy mused. Annabeth glowered at him. They did battle a few of the smaller demons and monsters that inhabit Great Britain, but nothing too challenging. Celtic monsters were very different from their Greek counterparts, but they died just the same. The trio went by train, bus and even walked. Annabeth refused to ride the night bus ever again. In London they saw the changing of the guard at Buckingham Palace, Big Ben and Piccadilly Circus, to name a few stops. The last day, Harry took Annabeth to 221B Baker Street. They went by the tube, and when they got to the station, the tile work was the silhouette of the great fictional detective. The guide at the small tourist shop under the famous apartment was very friendly and knowledgeable. Back in Flintlock's office, 3 tired demigods stepped in. With goodbyes remarked, Percy and Annabeth returned via portkey back to Camp Half-Blood. "All done," Harry remarked, tiredly to his account manager. 4 soul leeches left. One's here in London, one at Hogwarts and Riddle, and the one with him. I have a feeling it's that pet snake of his that I remember seeing. Harry gave a weary sigh. "These, I can't get to secretly. I have no choice but to come out of hiding." And with the opening of school so close, he wasn't looking forward to the Spanish Inquisition he knew was waiting for him when he returned. Question: did anyone find the Lot R reference we couldn't resist putting in? Until next time. GF and the Frau. Chapter 7. Father's World. Harry sighed. There wasn't anything left to do. He had a week before term started and he'd had the best summer ever. He'd taken care of all the soul leeches that he could, without help, and even got to be a normal teenager on holiday, with only a few interruptions. Harry got to see many of the most historic tourist sites with good friends. That they weren't upset he'd lied about his name was a bonus. Before she and Percy returned to the States, Annabeth did ask if Harry knew who his deity parent was. He admitted he did, but couldn't tell her as his sire could not officially claim him. Harry assured her that Lord Hades, however, did know. That was why the Lord of the Underground had worked out a deal which included Harry's year at Camp Half-Blood. Now it was time to return to the wizarding world. Harry hated all it stood for. He hated the stares, the too personal questions, the manipulations and expectations, and the dismissal of his concerns and questions. So a quick note was sent to Sirius saying he was ready for his great return. Albus Dumbledore wasn't having the best of summers. Harry Potter had disappeared at King's Cross and no one had been able to find him since. The protection around Harry's relatives fell on the boy's birthday. With the Dementors loose around Harry's home, it was a very good thing that the boy had not been there. Even Harry's young friends had no idea where the boy was. Albus had commanded both of them to inform him if and when Harry owled them. Under no circumstances were they to reply. It wasn't safe. Then there was Sirius. He'd been missing since Harry returned from the third task. He was last seen in the infirmary that spring. The Animagus refused to reveal where he had been when questioned on his return. And to Albus' dismay, his stay in Azkaban had made his mind unreadable, so Albus couldn't lift the information from Sirius' reinforced occlumency barriers. Thank Merlin he had been able to persuade the man to open up his London house for the order. "Albus, you there?" Molly's strident voice came from the flow. "Harry's contacted Sirius. He's in London." Harry was sitting in the back of the small cafe, flirting with a young waitress. His lessons in flirting had vastly improved that particular skill, courtesy of the Aphrodite cabin. He'd had to keep a step ahead of the kids there, as they made it a game to see how many hearts they could claim. It also didn't hurt to have a marauder for a godfather, a trickster god for a sire, not to mention access to another marauder residing in the underworld. Harry had learned for sheer emotional survival, if nothing else. Remus and another person walked in. Harry could tell she was magical from the aura she was emitting. According to the descriptions he'd gotten from Sirius, it had to be his cousin, Nymphadora Tonks. He couldn't miss that bubblegum pink hair and punk look. Harry decided to let them search for him. After all, he really didn't look much like his old self, so it might take them a while. He watched as they scanned the tables and snickered with amusement as they futilely glanced about. "I don't see him, Remus," the witch remarked as they took a seat. "I don't detect any magical signature here other than ours, either." "Are you sure this is the place he remarked he would meet Sirius?" Harry smothered a chuckle as he listened in. Of course she couldn't detect his magic, he was hiding it. "I don't sense, or smell him," Remus responded just before the waitress, who had been flirting with Harry, came over to get their order. Remus knew what Harry now glanced like, but wasn't about to make that fact known. He had been in on the planning sessions with Sirius and Flintlow. CK and knew of the scheme for Harry and Sirius to travel into the past. Now, the vow he took kept him silent. Harry paid his bill and quietly got the girl's phone number. Sirius had given him a small black book for his birthday. For just in case. Single quote. He waited a bit more, to make sure that no other wizard or witch was in the area. It glanced safe, but one couldn't be too careful. So, with a smirk, he decided to send a bit misdirection their way. Illusory Harry moved over to the table where his former professor was sitting. The real Harry had moved into the dark hallway that led to the loos. "Mind if I sit here?" Harry inquired. This Harry glanced pretty much as he used to, with a cap pulled down covering his scar. "Yes we do," the girl remarked, but was stopped when Remus placed a hand on her arm. "Hello Harry," Remus remarked. "Where have you been?" Harry smirked and shrugged. "Around. I see Dumbledore has been notified." Harry: "That's no way for you to talk about the headmaster." Tonks sputtered. "I sent word to my godfather, not that old ass." "Why isn't Sirius here?" The headmaster wondered. It was too danger. "Right. More likely he's trying to keep Sirius and I apart." "Well, it won't work." Remus snorted. "So, ready to return?" "Molly's been fussing and fretting. She's been in a cleaning frenzy ever since Padfoot reopened his mother's place and let us use it as headquarters." "We need to leave," the witch remarked, looking around nervously. "Who's this?" Harry inquired. elbowing the old wolf with a sneer and a wink. "She's quite the dish, you sly old wolf. Watch it," she snarled. "Names, Tonks. I'm an Auror and Dumbledore has assigned me to bring you in." "Bring me in? And since when is Dumbledore head of the Aurors?" "Hey, you must be Nymphadora, Sirius told me about you. He's the leader of the light, and don't call me by my first name," she snarled. Harry, who had been disillusioned in the hallway, stepped forward as the trio stood. Muse paid the bill and Harry followed them back to the Leaky. When it became apparent that no one was behind him, Harry merged with his illusionary self, maintaining his old appearance. They flowed to Grimmauld Place, Sirius' old home. Thanks to his godfather's lessons, Harry didn't land on his face as he had in the past, but stepped forth gracefully into the sitting room. Sirius was waiting in an armchair for their arrival. "Welcome back, Harry. We have to be quiet now, or we'll set my mother off," Sirius remarked softly as they passed a wall with a black curtain covering it on their way to the kitchen. The greetings from those present in the kitchen were pretty much what he had expected. A lot of shouting, overbearing hugs from Molly Weasley and Hermione, and backslapping from the twins and Ron. After the four of them were seated, Harry found it amusing as Sirius held court in the kitchen, claiming his rightful place at the head of the table. Right from the start, Harry knew that everyone would try, especially Molly, to keep his godfather and him apart. Well, it wasn't going to happen. Just in time for lunch, Molly remarked as she went back to the stove. She called for help setting the table and for everyone to come and eat. The red-headed Weasley matriarch maneuvered her daughter Ginny to sit beside Harry, and Hermione next to Ron. Harry shook his head at the ploy and proceeded to ignore the Weasley daughter while the twins distracted everyone with a bit of silliness. It had been difficult, but before he started eating, Harry managed to take a bit of food off his plate and hide it in a napkin. There was no way he could make a sacrifice with so many unbelievers in the room. He'd have to do it later. Harry sent a small prayer of apology that he couldn't do it right then, as was proper. He wasn't as sneaky as he wondered, though. Two people saw him do it: Sirius and Hermione. Sirius knew what Harry was doing. He'd seen it often enough over the past year, and so he wondered nothing of it. Hermione, however, was just puzzled. Was Harry saving food for a new pet? After lunch, Harry quietly went into the sitting room and dropped his food into the fire. He silent L.Y. apologized that he couldn't do it before he ate. He was in enemy territory, as it were, and hoped both his grandfather and sire would forgive him. "Have no worries, Harry," came a small voice in the back of his mind. "It is understandable. Thank you, grandfather." Harry didn't see the shadow of someone spying on him. "Harry, come, I'll show you where you'll sleep," called Molly Weasley. When Hermione noticed Harry hide the food at table, she decided not to say anything yet. There was something off about Harry, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. Like any puzzle she came across, she'd figure it out as soon as she had enough of the pieces. There was a quiet determination in Harry that wasn't there when last she saw him. He was also distant with her and Ron. She was determined to get him alone and talking. If there were something dark going on, she would tell Dumbledore, but for right now, she'd keep her suspicions to herself. She'd followed Harry to the sitting room, expecting to have that chat with him. What she saw there shocked her. He was throwing the food he'd taken from the table into the fireplace, like some kind of offering. What in Merlin's name was he doing? "Harry," came Molly's voice from the kitchen. Mrs. Weasley tried to set Harry up in a room with her youngest son, Ron. Harry was sure that this was another ploy to keep tabs on him. Well, it wasn't going to work. When she left him to get settled, Harry turned around and left the bedroom. Sirius had promised Harry he could sleep in Regulus' old room, and after speaking to his shade, he knew that Regulus would not mind. When he reached the bedroom, he called Creature. The old elf appeared, as Harry knew he would. He was very loyal to Sirius, late brother. "What does dirty half-blood want with Creature?" sneered the small elf from a distance. Harry smirked. He was a half-blood in more ways than anyone knew. "Creature, I have been to the cave where your former master died." The old house elf froze as Harry went on. "I was able to send his soul on to peace. Before he left, he told me of the task he gave you." The old elf began to shake, wringing his hands. Creature couldn't finish what Master ordered him to do. Creature has punished himself for failing. Do you want to see your task finished? I know how to destroy the locket. The Lord of the Underworld is very anxious to get his hands on what it contains, Harry remarked, kneeling and placing a hand on the trembling elf's shoulder. Bring the locket to me after everyone's gone to bed tonight and I'll let you watch as I fulfill your beloved master's last order. Will you let me help you? Between the two of us, we can restore the honor and glory of the House of Black. Creature nodded as tears fell from his rheumy eyes. Harry stood and glanced at Regulus' bedroom door. Creature, do you think I can use his old room? I really don't want to sleep with others. Creature will clean this room for young master. Creature will help. Chair that evening Albus Dumbledore came through the flow, conveniently arriving just before supper. He greeted everyone present as if he was the lord of the manor and they were his loyal retainers. Harry, my dear, everyone come and sit, supper's ready, Molly commanded from the kitchen, interrupting Dumbledore. Supper was just as boisterous as lunch, however this time, the noise set off Walburga's portrait in the entryway. Mud bloods. Filth. Get out of my house. Shut up, you old hag, Sirius yelled back as he raced into the hallway and slammed the black curtains closed. More people began to show up for the meeting that was to come after dinner. Harry knew there would be a lot of questions if the odd glances he was getting during dinner were any indication. No one was being very subtle about it. Not surprisingly, that included the headmaster and Hermione. Harry was sure that Hermione would not wait much longer for her questions to be answered. She could be quite scary when she wanted to be. Well, let them try. No one would be getting any straight answers from him. He now had a better mastery of misdirection. His sire saw to that little skill. They wouldn't know what hit them. Thinking of his sire, he had been awfully quiet lately. Harry wasn't sure what was going on. He hoped he hadn't offended him in any way. He shuddered to think what might happen if he had. It wouldn't be pretty. Sirius was again holding court at his end of the table. His cousin, the young Auror, Tonks, was busy entertaining the masses with her metamorph ability to change her features. Harry smiled. He could do that as well. Not as well as Loki, but he could at least change his hair and eye color. Molly started to usher the teens out of the kitchen when dinner was over. The meeting was getting started. Now, Molly, I am sure the children would like to hear where Harry has been all summer. They are his friends after all, Albus chided. All right, but after that, they will leave, Molly grudgingly conceded. Once everyone was settled, the moment Harry had been dreading arrived. He sent a silent plea to his sire. So Harry, my boy, the headmaster started to ask. Where have you been? The goblins, Harry stated calmly. I reckoned if anyone would give me straight answers, they would. Harry knew that was a dig at the headmaster, who had never given Harry a straight answer in all his years at Hogwarts. But you can't trust the goblins. Someone from the order remarked. Oh really? And yet, you trust them with your wealth, Harry quipped. They were very forthcoming in answering my questions. Since they have been trying to reach me for a meeting with them since I was 11. The angry teen spat in a clipped voice. Seems I never received any of their letters, or my quarterly statements. Harry, my dear boy, you were much too young to be burdened with such mat. Dumbledore tried to assure, only to be interrupted loudly. Too young, headmaster, too young, Sirius yelled. He's the last living heir to an ancient and noble house. That simple statement set off a flood of questions, insults and mayhem. Harry heard a malicious laugh in the back of his mind. Well done, my son. The meeting went downhill after that. Albus tried to bring them back in line without success. You were with the goblins all summer. Harry shrugged. Not really. Sirius lent me his motorbike and I've been seeing the sights. Never was allowed to have a holiday when I lived with my relatives. They never took me anywhere. Surely that is an exaggeration, my boy. Albus chided. If you say so, sir. But you know nothing of my life, as you refused to have anything to do with me except for your twisted schemes. Harry shrugged, and that set off another round of chaos as many called for Harry to apologize. Molly Weasley's strident voice sounded over the general chaos. Harry James Potter, you will apologize to the headmaster, at once. If there was one thing Harry learned at camp, it was the fine art of back-talking. American teen style. With a nod and a smirk he spoke. I apologize, sir, for your total lack of concern in the quality of my life, but I told the truth. My relatives refused to take me on any of their holidays. I stayed with Mrs. Fig. You know her, the cat lady who lives on Wisteria Drive. The one set up by you to watch over me, who you paid from my parents' estate. The one whose reports you ignored. That set off another round of chaos, led by Sirius this time. The old marauder glanced like he was ready to strangle the headmaster with his own beard. Bringing the meeting, yet again, back to order. Albus tried once more. It was not safe to go gallivanting around England on a motorbike, my boy. Harry again shrugged. So, I didn't stay any place long. You couldn't find me, at least not until I sent a note to Sirius. I don't see the fuss. No one cared before what I did over the summer halls, especially you lot. So why start now? At least I had enough to eat. No chores and no one calling me freak. No one remarked a word about that as they all turned to the headmaster for answers. The meeting ended on a sour note not long after that. Harry and Sirius exchanged a glance. No one had inquired him what the goblins told him. It looks as if you've set the fox among the hens now. You truly are my son, I am most pleased. Loki's dark laughter echoed in his mind. Harry waited in his new room for the townhouse to settle for the night. He had been highly amused at the discord resulting from his misdirection during the meeting. Mrs. Weasley was highly put out by Harry's lack of respect for the headmaster. But as anyone knows, respect is earned, not demanded, and once respect is lost, it can be hard to regain. Albus Dumbledore had lost any and all respect Harry ever had for him. There was no way the aged wizard would ever regain it. The one person that had realized what was going on was Alistair, Mad-Eye, Moody. He gave Harry a nod as he left and only remarked, "You'll do." The townhouse was finally quiet. Harry waited patiently in Regulus' old room. Creature had done a somewhat adequate job of cleaning, at least there were fresh sheets on the bed. Ed and his feet didn't leave tracks in the dust anymore. A quiet knock at the door and Harry stepped out onto the landing. Sirius and Remus were already on their way down to the sitting room. No one else was awake. Harry called Creature to him. "May I have the locket, please, Creature?" Harry inquired when the old elf appeared. "Young master," inquired Creature politely for the locket. Creature muttered. Creature is a bad elf. He failed his duty to young master Regulus. Creature could not destroy it. Harry held out his hand to the old elf for the locket. "Watch, Creature." Sirius and Remus stayed in the shadows, watching. There was nothing they could do. Harry took the locket and dropped it into the fire. "Lord Hades, please accept the soul leech within this locket. And it please you, return the locket clean of its taint, so that I may give it to one who has been faithful in his service." The fire flared a bit, then died down. The locket rolled out of the flames and onto the floor, cool to the touch. Harry picked it up and draped it over Creature's neck. "It is done, Creature." "Thank you." Creature's old eyes watered as he fingered the locket around his neck. "It is done." Creature senses no dark magic as before. "Creature," Harry remarked, placing a hand on the old elf's shoulder. "Your master Regulus was sorry he had to leave you. He was sorry he had to die the way he did. Now, we must bring back the glory of the House of Black." "Yes, young master." Young master has done what Creature could not. Creature will do as young master says. Hermione slipped quietly back up the stairs. She couldn't hear what Harry was saying into the fire, but she noted that what he had dropped into it fell back out. It was another piece to the puzzle and she was determined to figure it out. Rai walked down to the kitchen for breakfast, but stopped at the curtain in the entryway. Opening the curtain, he saw a gilded portrait of Sirius' mother. "Good morning, Lady Black. May I have a moment of your time?" Harry put a bit of his magic into his words and gaze. As Lady Black started to berate whoever had disturbed her, she paused. "And you are my lord, Lord Harry James Potter, madam, head of the ancient and noble house of Potter. There is more to you, isn't there, my lord?" she inquired with sharp, calculating eyes. "You are correct, Lady Black. As you may know, I am a half-blood, but in more ways than one." She glanced at him for a moment, studying the look and feel of his magic. "I see, my lord." Her eyes widened. "Who is your immortal parent?" Harry chuckled. "It would seem the Blacks have not forgotten the old knowledge like so many others." "I am afraid, madam, I am not allowed to say," Harry paused a moment before asking, "May I ask a favor, Lady Black?" "If it is within my power, my lord." She glanced at him a bit confused. Harry could hear someone coming down the stairs, so he knew he had to hurry. "I know we are invading your home, but screaming like a fishwife is so unbecoming for someone of your obvious status. I shall take your words into consideration, my lord. My ears will appreciate it, Lady Black. I wish you a good day." Harry bowed to her as he closed her curtain. He took a deep breath and turned to face whoever was coming down the stairs. The week flew by for some, but dragged for Harry, who had gotten used to the fast, military pace of Camp Half-Blood. There, every minute was full and he was used to being busy. His summer assignments weren't that hard to do. With a few hours' work, despite Ron's attempts at interference, Harry got caught up on them easily. It wasn't that complicated. Harry did send a letter to both Professors Babbling and Vector, asking if he could talk with them sometime the first week of classes. His parents had given H.I.M. the basics of what was expected in the 5th year. They had been very disappointed that he had taken divination instead of a more useful elective. Well, he had a plan to fix that, and since this was 5th year and their owls were in the spring, it was going to be a very interesting year. For those that don't see any conflict in this story, we might remind you all that Frau and I like to take our time to build a story. The conflict is to come, be patient. Harry is now out of training and heading to Hogwarts. We do try to stay close to canon, but will admit not being that familiar with PJO as much as we would like. The lot R reference was, "There were dead faces in the water." Only Leonidas picked it up. The Monty Python was very unintended but glanced to be well received from the many comments we got. Chapter 8. Father's World. A few days before term started, Harry heard back from both professors, who were curious as to what he wanted to talk to them about. The owl arrived one morning and of course, the adults at Grimmauld Place wanted to know what was going on since Harry seldom got mail. Molly was one of the more vocal about it. "Harry, you don't know who sent that, you must let an adult check for spells," she shrieked, grabbing for the letter. Harry shrugged, dodging her grasping hands. "And this is your business, why?" Molly sputtered and demanded to see the letter, which Harry quickly destroyed in front of her. "As I remarked, Mrs. Weasley, and meaning no disrespect, it isn't any of your business. The letter was addressed to me." He quickly excused himself from the table. "Brass ones. Our little Harrikins has grown a pair of big brass ones," exclaimed one of the Weasley twins, stepping around their irate mother as they followed Harry out of the room. "Definitely brass ones," the other agreed with a snicker. Ron ran to catch up with his best mate as he didn't want to be anywhere near his mother at the moment. He silently agreed with the twins, but even he wasn't too sure about this new attitude. Albus Dumbledore stopped by several times in the ensuing 2 days to try and get information from Harry. What puzzled the teen the most was that the headmaster would not meet his gaze. It wasn't until he talked with his sire in a dream that he figured it out. The headmaster wondered he still had the soul leech in his scar. Well, Harry had news for the old geezer. It was gone, and he might mention that fact to the headmaster as soon as the old git would stop playing his stupid, manipulative mind games. Sirius and Harry met secretly the last evening before term started, after everyone went to bed. Molly had tried, once more, to keep Harry away from his godfather, but they ensured she failed yet again. She had no way of knowing that the two were on to her schemes. Sirius and Harry went over any last-minute details while reliving old stories of happier times and people now gone. As for the Order of the Phoenix, Dumbledore's little band of merry misfits, Harry knew everything they knew. Sirius kept him well informed of their activities. Harry was also still having his demigod dreams. In them he saw the meetings, and what everyone reported. It amused him to K. Now they were still guarding the Department of Mysteries, talk about being a day late and a Canute short. As for the prophecy, well, Harry knew what it remarked and where it was. Flintlock still had the sphere in his office. Harry wondered it fitting, and slightly amusing, that his goblin account manager was using it as a paperweight. Harry stared up at the ugliest-looking horse-like creatures he had ever seen. So this is what pulls the carriages, he wondered as he stepped off the train platform once the express had arrived at Hogsmeade Station. "I can see them too," came the dreamy voice of Luna Lovegood. A spacey blonde Harry had met on the train. Anyone who has seen death can see them. They're called thestrals. Harry gave her a puzzled look. The blonde girl seemed very lost in a dream-like state and yet very intuitive. He would give her that. He was pretty sure she had seer blood in her. There were several kids at camp that had the same surreal quality about them. He didn't think she was a demigod. But the only way to confirm that, according what he learned at camp, was to have a satyr confirm it, or have a monster try to kill her. Harry didn't have someone like Grov handy, and he definitely didn't want deal with a monster tonight. Feast was great. Harry had been looking forward to, and dreading, the meal all day. He had to come up with a way to deal with his mealtime sacrifices. He was sure someone was going to notice, but it couldn't be helped. He was also certain Hermione was already suspicious. The speeches during the feast were not so great. According to Flintlock Dolores Umbridge, a ministerial toady, was to have been the new Dada instructor. After she was caught for sending those Dementors to Surrey, she was removed from office. The unfilled teaching position was then given to John Dawlish, an Auror on recuperation leave. His ministry-approved speech proved he just didn't know when to shut up, and he came across as a brown-nosing loser in Harry's opinion. Back in the dorm, once the welcoming feast was over, Harry was forced into a confrontation with his dorm mate, Seamus Finnegan. "Me mum didn't really want me to return," Seamus told everyone as they tried to get ready for bed. "She didn't know what to think, what with the prophet switchin' back and forth in its opinions." "Whatever." Harry waved Seamus off in disgust. "I could care less. The wizarding world never could think for itself." He snorted, rolling his eyes. "Bloody sheeple. The lot of you. Stand by and bleat while you're butchered, one by one. I'm going to bed. You aren't even going to defend yourself." "Mate," Ron sputtered. The redhead shared a look with the others in the room. "Why should I?" Harry scoffed, as he climbed into his bed. "The dark tosser's back, thanks to a bloody dark ritual. If people refuse to see what's happening right under their noses, their stupidity's not my problem." "What about Diggory? Is the prophet right? You killed him." Seamus yelled at him. Harry sighed and shook his head. He'd spent a lot of time with Sirius, and later with his parents in demigod dreams, dealing with what happened. He was past all that. It also helped that he'd spoken with Cedric's shade as well. The 7th year's shade hadn't blamed Harry for his death. "Whatever," he repeated tiredly while pulling his bed curtains closed. "Cedric Diggory was slaughtered with a killing curse. My wand was checked when we reappeared after the task, it was clean. Now, I'm going to sleep. Effin' morons, the lot of you." "That's it?" Seamus demanded at Harry's closed curtains. "That's all you're going to say?" Silence was Harry's answer. The rest of the boys exchanged a knowing look and decided to follow Harry's suggestion. Hermione was a witch on a mission. Harry was not acting like the Harry she knew. He was more confident, more sure of himself. She didn't know what to make of this new Harry James Potter. Ron told her about the confrontation between Seamus and Harry in their dorm the night before and how he had dismissed Seamus. Arguments. The old Harry would have tried to make Seamus see reason. He would have done his best to prove he was telling the truth. This new Harry didn't seem to think they were worth the effort. No, something wasn't right and she was going to find out what. Hermione huffed as she headed for the library. Harry met with Professor Ector first as she had the earliest office hours. He presented her with a stack of parchment and workbooks. "What is this, Mr. Potter?" Professor Vector inquired, taking the stack. "This is all the assignments from the ends of chapters in the texts you assigned last year," Harry explained, "as well as self-study workbooks that homeschoolers use. I want to take my owls in both ancient runes and arithmancy. I had it brought home to me last year that I can't hide anymore. Voldemort is back, whether people want to believe it or not. My parents were intelligent people but, because of my relatives, my desire to learn was beaten out of me. Well no, more." His hand slapped down on her desk. He sighed as he visibly calmed himself. "Can you help me or not? I used the workbooks. Do you think I have a chance?" Professor Septima Vector glanced through the workbooks and frowned. "Why are you showing this to me now? Why haven't you shown this ability when you were younger? My relatives, the ones Dumbledore placed me with, hated magic. Hated me," he went on to explain, even though he was loath to tell anyone what he suffered as a child. When I went to primary school I was punished for doing better than my cousin. It got to be a habit. Hiding my true abilities. He ran a hand through his already messy hair, looking around the office before turning his striking green eyes on her. When I came to Hogwarts, I was so full of expectations, of being able to be myself. But it had been drilled into me that I would be punished for doing well. By the time I realized that my relatives would no longer care, it was too late. I was labeled as a mediocre student. Not to mention Snape, who killed any passion I had for potions with his hatred and vicious persecution of me in an attempt to punish my long-deceased father. And to top it all off, Dumbledore knew about it and actually encouraged it. So I had to hide behind an innocuous, inept persona, or be labeled the next Dark Lord in training. Shocked arithmancy professor absent-mindedly leafed through the workbook. The professor frowned, trying to make up her mind based on what she knew of Mr. Potter and what she was seeing here in her office. Come back Friday, Mr. Potter. I want to test you to see where you are in your studies. Some of these workbooks are Newt level. She glanced up at him as she sat the bundle on her desk. Frankly, I would like to believe you did these on your own and that no one helped you with them. If you pass, we can set you up in a self-study program. Harry gave her a curt nod. Fair enough, Professor. The conversation went about the same in Professor Babbling's office that afternoon. She, too, seemed skeptical of Harry's claims but also willing to give the teen a chance. The first Dada class was different. For one, Dawlish knew his stuff. He explained that he had a mandate from the ministry to comply with new guidelines. He picked up the pile of books on his desk and scornfully threw them on the floor. A quick incendio spell and they were nothing but a black spot. You are here to learn defense against the dark arts, and if the ministry wanted someone to shovel this shite, then they should have sent someone else. He huffed as the entire class sat in awed silence. Potter, you will behave in this class or get out. I don't much care for liars. I don't know what happened in that maze, Potter, he sneered. But, by Merlin, I intend to find out. And I won't put up with any of your grandstanding. You are here to learn and I won't have you showing off. When class was over, Harry was impressed with the man's skill. But disgusted with the way he clung to the ministry's hardline denial. In Dawlish's opinion, you know who was killed in 1981, when Potter was a toddler. The staff meeting FTER the first week of term was interesting, and when the first item on the agenda was Harry Potter, Professors Babbling and Vector now knew that the headmaster took a very unhealthy interest in the lad. Both of them had their heads together at one end of the table, comparing notes. They had tested Potter and had been amazed at how well he did. They were now working out a schedule for him to continue his self-study in their respective courses. And both were questioning whether or not to mention this in the meeting. Then there was Minerva. They knew that she was a very hands-off head of house. The deputy headmistress was so busy doing her administrative duties and teaching that she didn't have much time to deal with her lions. It had been noted in the past that she allowed her cubs to run rampant in the school with little to no supervision. Although Potter seemed to be her current favorite, she did little to help him or encourage him in his studies. Then there was Severus Snape. All the other professors knew that the man, although highly skilled in potions making, was a horrid teacher. They did grant that the man took extreme care to keep his students from blowing up his classroom. But he had no real teaching skills and was extremely poor at passing on that knowledge. Look who made fifth-year Gryffindor prefect, for Merlin's sake. Septima Vector groused privately to arithmancy professor before the staff meeting. Ron Weasley is the last person I would pick. That lad is little more than a lazy menace. He has only two things on his Minfoot and Quidditch. Giggling, Bathsheba Babbling agreed. But before the discussion could go any further, the headmaster called for attention. Both professors glanced at each other silently and decided not to bring up their dealings with the Potter heir. Harry James Potter had not only impressed both of them with his scores on their tests, but with his very mature and cynical attitude about this school. He was well into Newt level in both their fields of study. No, both professors decided not to mention anything to either Albus or Minerva at this time. They would give the lad this one chance and he'd better appreciate it. Finally, Harry wondered as he disappeared into a little used hallway after supper. It was 2 weeks into the term and finally time to deal with the soul leech here at Hogwarts. From what his grandfather told him, there were only 2 fragments left after this one, Riddle himself and his snake, Nagini. Getting away from Hermione and her crusade of studying for their owls and obsessive NDS about his summer had been difficult, to say the least. She was dogging his footsteps everywhere but the loo, giving him no chance for privacy. Of course, if it wasn't Hermione's badgering, it was Ron's constant whining for Harry to talk Quidditch or play chess. It was as if the redhead wanted Harry to fail. Not to mention, Harry now had the extra independent studies he was doing piled onto everything else. He couldn't get a moment's peace. Tonight was the first time he was able to get away under his invisibility cloak. With compass in hand, he moved unseen through the castle. Now what? He wondered as he stared at the blank wall in front of him. The compass had led him to the 7th floor. He needed to think, and to think he usually paced. As he pondered what to do next and how was he going to get to the soul leech. He paced back and forth in front of the blank wall. Suddenly a wooden door appeared in the wall, causing Harry to stop. That wasn't there before, he wondered as he pointed his compass at it. Yep, it's behind that door. Well, nothing for it. He swung the heavy wooden door open cautiously and stepped inside. Behind the door was a dark room full of junk. Harry cast a Lumos spell as he entered. He followed the compass until he found a bust of some long-forgotten wizard, and on its head sat a tiara. The compass was pointing right at it. The urge to put it on was strong. But before Harry could act on that urge, he quickly levitated it into the silken bag he had with him. That's done, he wondered, as the urge faded. Only Riddle and his snake are left. Single quote. He exited the junk-filled room. He now needed to find a place to offer this up to Grandfather and get the tiara to the goblins to see if they could return it to its original owners. Mr. Potter, the Grey Lady of Ravenclaw remarked as she and the Bloody Baron glided up to him when the door faded back into the stone wall. I see you have found my mother's diadem. What do you plan to do with it? With the bag in hand, Harry bowed politely to the pair. Ghosts were souls that could not, or chose not, to move on because they had some business left in the physical world. He remembered the rant his grandfather liked to pull when a spirit refused to come before him to be judged. I have, my lady, but it's been corrupted by evil, Harry remarked as he held up the silken bag. I plan on offering the tainted bit to Lord Hades and pray he will cleanse it without destroying the item. Afterwards, I planned on giving it to the goblins, to find the true owners. I will be content to see it returned here. She bowed slightly. Heir of Potter, it is noted that you've come into your inheritance. It was once known that Ignotus Peverell was a demigod of Hades. So I must ask, what about the ghosts here at Hogwarts? Harry smiled as he corrected her. Grandfather, Lord Hades, claimed me over the summer. I am on a personal quest for him, and as far as I know he has no plans for the ghosts here. As you know, Grandfather does not appreciate souls who refuse to come to him for judgment, but he can't come seeking them himself. Very well, Mr. Potter, I thank you for correcting the wrong and the slight done to my family heirloom. Might I suggest that when you clean it of its taint you give it to the current head of Ravenclaw? He will know what it is and where it belongs. Harry bowed again to the pair of spirits. I shall do as you suggest, my lady. I am content, the Grey Lady whispered with a slight smile. You have done well, as am I, the Bloody Baron agreed, bowing deeply. You have our gratitude. Harry inquired Dobby about the room he'd found, and Dobby explained it was the come and go room. It be's a magical room. Yous have to walk 3 times past the top. Pestry and be's thinkin' about what yous need. Harry Potter, sir, Dobby told him. So if I pace in front of the hanging 3 times, thinking of the room I need, a door will appear. Inside will be what the room thinks I want, Harry inquired, remembering how he paced in the hallway before the door appeared. Yes, Harry Potter, sir, Dobby remarked, nodding his head vigorously. It wasn't until 2days later that Harry could get free of his friends again to deal with the diadem. He was getting a little fed up with Hermione and Ron, who seemed bound and determined to monopolize his time. He had an He realized before just how invasive their clinging was with the way the two were always dogging him. The room appeared again, just as Harry requested. Inside was his cabin from camp. In it was a familiar brass brazier with a small fire burning. Perfect, Harry smiled. He called Dobby and sent him to ask the Grey Lady and the Bloody Baron if they wished to join him. After all, they seemed concerned about it. It's only fair. Dobby wasn't too keen on asking the ghosts, but did as Harry inquired. They be's on their ways, Harry Potter, sir. When they appeared, Harry lifted the silken bag up and bowed to the pair. Thank you for coming. I wondered you might wish to see this through with me. The Grey Lady nodded as the Bloody Baron just hovered beside her. Harry turned and dropped the bag into the brazier saying, Lord Hades, please accept this offering. It contains one of the soul leeches of Tom Riddle. And if it please you, I ask you return the diadem cleansed of its taint, so I may return it to its rightful owners. Thank you, grandfather, for your support. The bag disappeared. Moments later the fire flared and the diadem floated out of the brazier into Harry's waiting hands. The evil magic that had corrupted it was gone and the diadem sparkled in the firelight. Thank you, grandfather, Harry smiled, giving the fire a slight bow. The Grey Lady and the Bloody Baron drifted away without saying a word to Harry. The next time Harry had charms with Professor Flitwick, he waited until after class and they were alone. Sir, I need to speak to you privately. It's of the utmost importance, Harry informed his charms professor. I see, Professor, Flitwick remarked. I will be busy up to the supper hour. Would 8:30 tonight be all right? Yes, sir. I'll see you then, Harry remarked. That evening, once Professor Flitwick invited Harry to make himself comfortable. Now Mr. Potter, what is this all about? Sir, how much of this will be reported back to the headmaster? Harry inquired. Very little, unless it pertains to the school's safety, then I must tell him everything I know. Does it pertain to he who must not be named? In a way, sir, Harry remarked, looking around the office. I found out that my dad, James Potter, was the direct descendant of Ignotus Peverell. And did you know that Ignotus was the son of the Greek god Hades? No, Flitwick's eyes went wide, but I know that the gods exist, Mr. Potter. All goblins do, the professor remarked. Go on. Harry shifted uncomfortably. This was much harder than he would have wondered. I found out that James Potter was hit by an infertility hex and couldn't father a child. So he and my mother petitioned the gods for a child. One god responded. Harry stopped and raised a hand. I can't say which. He doesn't want anyone to know. But given what you know of James's and Sirius personalities and my looks, you can imagine which one. Well, my sire and Hades got together after the third task and took me in hand. That was where I was over the summer. By Merlin's balls. Professor Flitwick gasped. Very well, Mr. Potter. I will not inform the headmaster. It really isn't any of his business anyway. I take it there is more. Harry continued on, explaining that Lord Hades told him that Riddle had split his soul and created Horcruxes. These soul leeches were scattered throughout England and Harry was charged with finding them and taking care of the problem. How did you take care of them, Mr. Potter? By offering them to Lord Hades in sacrifice, and then he returned the original items back to me, Harry remarked. And what does this have to do with me? A flummoxed Flitwick gasped. Harry pulled out the lost diadem of Rowena Ravenclaw and placed it on his desk. Riddle used this as a Horcrux. Phileas Flitwick jumped back in surprise. He had wondered Mr. Potter wanted to ask about his grades and how to improve them. This was totally unexpected, and it did explain the Grey Lady's odd behavior the last few days. As this, of course it is. I take it isn't. The diminutive professor stuttered as he peered at the diadem. There are only 2 left and Riddle will be taken down, Harry informed him in a clipped voice. And the great part is I know how, and it won't be the grand battle that the headmaster was setting me up for. Harry spoke, scorn dripping from every word. Mr. Potter, the headmaster wouldn't do that. He cares for you, Flitwick chided. Sure he does, Harry snarked sarcastically, but that doesn't stop him from playing his games and spouting his greater good philosophy. Both my sire and grandfather have plans for the manipulative old fool. Flitwick shuddered at Harry's last words as cold chills shook him. Be that as it may, Mr. Potter, Jew, Saint, how do you want me to announce the return of the lost diadem? He squeaked out. Harry grinned. This story is about over. 2, maybe 3 chapters are left. There are no pairings for this story as some have inquired about it. Sorry guys. Until next time. GF and the Frau. Chapter 9. Father's World. Chapter 9. Albus Dumbledore pondered as he sat in his office. Where had he gone wrong? He was certain that Harry was a Horcrux. Now that Tom was back, he should be seeing some sign of Harry being influenced by Voldemort. Should being the key word. Unfortunately, it wasn't happening. Instead, Harry was happier and more focused than ever this year. From what he could gather from Harry's little friends, he was now more interested in studying than leisure pursuits. Not even Mr. Weasley could lure him away from his studies to go flying. Where had he been all summer? Just who was he with? Who helped him? He at first wondered it was serious, but Black returned alone on Harry's birthday. He would never have left his godson, especially on that day. Sighing, Albus popped a lemon drop into his mouth. There was nothing to it. He had to call Harry in for another meeting. Professors Vector and Babbling were going over Harry Potter's test scores. The teen had stunned them with his work in ancient runes and arithmancy. What they failed to realize was that to Harry, reading runes was just like reading English. He'd proved it by reading very complex arrays. With ease. He was well beyond Newt level and headed for mastery. Arithmancy was a different story. He could breeze through some of the more complicated problems. But he was nowhere near the level he was in runes. Both professors were appalled at both Albus and Minerva for almost ruining the boy with their unreasonable expectations of the boy who lived. So they agreed to keep to themselves what they were doing with Harry and made a pact to keep quiet. They were soon joined by a third Phileas Flitwick. The charms professor wasn't blind, nor was he oblivious. Flitwick had seen Harry Potter meeting once a week with both professors. So it stood to reason that the 5th year was getting extra tutoring, and he wanted in. Harry trudged up the stairs to the headmaster's office. Just what did the senile old fart want now? Harry, my boy, come in, the headmaster called, blue eyes twinkling. Have a seat. Harry sat on the hard wooden chair. What did you want, sir? I still have to finish my potions essay. This won't take long. Harry, my boy, Albus Dumbledore remarked, taking out his wand. Lemon drop or tea? Harry's eyes narrowed slightly as he recognized the wand. It was the Elder Wand. How convenient. He didn't have to go looking for it after all. Tea, please sir. Why did you call me up here? Harry, I called you up here you have been a bit distant to your friends, the headmaster started to say. Harry inwardly groaned as Albus waved his wand and a tea service appeared. It looks like the headmaster was on a fishing trip and Harry was the catch of the day. Actually, sir, Harry remarked, not touching the cup of tea. He was sure it was laced with something. We really don't have much in common. Anymore. He no tea. Ced, the headmaster wasn't looking him in the eyes and Harry wondered why. But you've been friends since you were 11, Harry. I know sir, but they haven't seen or done what I have. We have nothing in common anymore. And with the death of Cedric, it's like I can't connect to them. I see, the headmaster remarked. Harry hid a smirk. Of course they had nothing in common anymore. Neither were demigods. Besides, with Ron's jealous nature and how he'd acted last year, Harry no longer trusted the immature git. And Hermione wasn't much better with her possessive, nagging ways. But Harry, my boy, why can't you tell me where you were last summer? I did, sir. If you don't want to believe me, I'm sorry, but I'm here now. Whole and healthy. Don't you want me to be? He responded sadly. Of course Harry, my boy. I am very happy that you are back safe and sound. I still have that potions essay to finish, sir. You know how Snape is. He stood, the tea still untouched and ignored. Professor Snape, Harry, yes, you may run along. The headmaster dismissed him with a shooing motion. Harry left quickly, not really seeing the shadow that detached itself from the corner of the headmaster's office. A shaking Severus Snape stepped out of the shadows. The headmaster had inquired him to monitor the little tete-a-tete with Potter. The brat's mind usually was an open book, but this time. Well, Severus. Severus rubbed his forehead with a trembling hand. Potter has somehow learned to block his mind. All I got from him were dark flames and shadows. It was most unsettling. Then Harry is going dark. Albus gasped with startled concern. The potion master snorted as a shudder racked his lean frame. Hardly. I haven't seen anything that would make me believe Potter is going dark. Any idea where Harry was for the summer? The old man pushed for an answer. Albus, why are you so obsessed with knowing? The brat has made it clear that he was safe and taken care of. Severus spat, with familiar venom as he gathered himself. The tan he is sporting gives testament to the fact. He is here now. Severus, with Harry having a connection to Tom, he'll need to have occlumency lessons, Albus mused. Stroking his beard, you will start teaching him, and while you are at it, see what you can learn. The following day, Harry was sitting with his friends in the Gryffindor common room when a note came to him from Snape. Come to my office after supper. SS. Who was that from, Harry? Hermione inquired. Snape. He wants to see me after supper, Harry remarked, tossing the note into the fireplace. Whatever for, mate? Ron inquired, as he studied his next move on the chessboard in front of him. Harry shrugged and stood. Don't know. Don't care. I'm for the library. You'll have me in 2 moves so I concede. Quote, hey. That evening Harry stopped first at the come-and-go room to offer up his meal sacrifice and a bit of chocolate to Persephone. He needed all the help he could get dealing with the bat of the dungeons. He wondered he heard a woman's giggle as he made his way out of the room. He knocked on the door to the potions master's office. Come in, Potter, and have a seat, Snape remarked without looking up from what he was doing at his desk. Yes, sir. He glanced around at the eerie display of items on the shelves behind the desk. Yep, Snape's office hasn't changed much. Still reminds me of Grandpa's lab from the Munsters, Harry wondered, smothering a grin. A clock ticking in the distance made a counterpoint to the scratching of a quill as Snape worked silently on the stack of papers in front of him. The old Harry would have started to fidget and wiggle as the silence ticked on, but the new Harry knew what was going on and Snape's intimidation tactic failed. While Harry waited out the ploy by his snarky professor, he closed his eyes and started to meditate. He began reviewing what he could do to liven up Hogwarts. After all, he did have a legacy to uphold, being the son of a marauder and the trickster god Loki. Mr. Potter, came Snape's voice, finally breaking the silence. You will not do me the discourtesy of falling asleep in my office. Yes, sir. He opened his eyes. I was waiting until you were done, sir. I could see you were busy. And you were the one that inquired me to come to your office, sir. You will not be cheeky with me, Potter. The professor sneered, slamming a hand flat onto his desk. I called you here to tell you that the headmaster wishes for me to help you control your connection to the Dark Lord now that he has returned. Thank you, sir, and the headmaster, but I don't need the help. I no longer have the connection. My grandfather took care of it, Harry remarked with smile. Do not lie to me, Potter. Everyone knows you have no living relatives except for your mother's sister and her son. The professor stood and came around the desk in a rage. And whose fault's that? Harry snarled, standing abruptly. Snape came nose to nose with Harry and glared at the teen. Harry could feel the man trying to break into his mind. This time Harry allowed it. An exultant Snape suddenly found himself in darkness, total and complete darkness. Loki was a god of illusions, and that included mind control. Harry inherited a small amount of that ability. If Snape found anything in Harry's mind, it was because Harry allowed it. However, Loki had other plans and Harry felt his sire take control of the situation. The poor professor wouldn't remember what Loki did to him, but the man would never again be able to invade another's mind. Loki had no love for the greasy git who had tormented his son all his years at Hogwarts, and this was an apt punishment. Harry pleaded with his sire not to take too much from Snape as he was a gifted potioneer. Plus, Harry had learned from his mother that the professor did love her at one time, and had sworn over her body that he would protect her, and he had, for the most part. Loki countered that he had done a piss-poor job of it. Harry agreed to that, but he did try. That was the only reason Severus Snape was still alive and in his right mind. Loki wanted to send him to the Fenris Wolf. An hour later, Harry walked out of Snape's office with a smirk. There are only 2 left, Father, Harry informed him. I won't go after them until Halloween. It's only fitting, and I know where the Elder Wand is now. Well, don't keep your grandfather waiting, Loki remarked. You know how he gets. Yes, father. I will do my best to make you and grandfather proud. I already am, came a second deep, echoing voice in his mind. Needless to say, Harry didn't return for any remedial lessons or detentions with Snape. And no matter how much Dumbledore demanded it, neither party were willing to comply. Harry gave an extra offering to his sire, thanking him for his help. Speaking of his sire, Harry knew he was letting him down for not living up to his pranking legacy. Once Harry finally got a handle on his studies, he decided it was time to deal with the ghosts at Hogwarts. The first thing Harry did was seek out the resident poltergeist. Potty, don't send Peeves on, Death's son. The poltergeist whined when Harry caught up with him. I wouldn't dream of it, Peeves and its grandson, Harry remarked when he caught up with the mischievous spirit. I have something for you. He held up a box of goodies. Potty got something for Peeves. Sure did Peeves. Got to live up to my heritage, Harry remarked, handing the box off. I am sure you can put these to good use. I would be very interested if you would use many of these around the Dada classroom. Also, I would be grateful if you didn't mention where you got this from. Peeves can do, the troublesome spirit promised. You won't send Peeves on. Nope, Hogwarts wouldn't be the same without you, Peeves. Come back to me when you run out. All I ask is you leave the firsties alone. Peeves will do. His words faded into a cackle as he sped out of sight. It was the last week in September and Hermione still couldn't figure out what was going on with Harry. He wasn't acting like the Harry she knew. He seemed more focused. And what was he doing burning food? She tried to get him alone to ask him, but he seemed to be dodging her. Well, she wouldn't stand for it any longer. She finally managed to corner him in the Gryffindor common room after his failed detention with Snape. Harry, we need to talk, she demanded as she sat beside him on the sofa where he'd been relaxing in front of the fireplace. Harry sighed as he set aside his book. What do you want, Hermione? Harry, what is going on? Why are you avoiding Ron and me? Why are you throwing food into the fire? Where were you last summer? How did you get Creature to act nice? What? Harry placed a finger on her lips, stopping the questions. Breathe, Hermione, breathe. She pulled his hand away and scowled at him. Harry, Hermione, sheesh. Dial it back, Harry demanded, using one of Percy's favorite comebacks. She huffed at him. You were out of the country, weren't you? That's why we couldn't find you. All right, Hermione, I'll talk, but you can't tell anyone. Not Ron and especially not Dumbledore. But Harry, he's, quote, an old fool who decided to play God with my life. He doesn't have my best interests at heart, he remarked, bitterly. Of course he does, Harry. She was gearing up for another rant when Harry stopped her again. Really? What about first year? He inquired. For the next hour Harry carefully led her through the details of his life. And Dumbledore's interference in it. She could see that he didn't want to speak of it, but she hadn't given him a choice. So you see, Hermione, he finished. The Americans have a saying, and yes, that was where I was for most of the summer. As for Dumbledore, he can kiss his own lily-white ass. I refused to play it his way. Cedric died in front of me, and what did he do afterwards? What has he done to help me? He would have sent me back to the Dursley without helping me deal with Cedric's death or what happened to me in the graveyard. He has never been there for me, why should I trust him? Because he's the great Dumbledore. Oh please, that ship has long since sailed. He's no more than a senile old man with delusions of godhood. Tears started to all down her cheeks at the bitter way he spoke about her hero. Was what he was saying true? What if it wasn't? She'd have to do more research. Quote, no, Hermione, I won't tell you anything. More if all you're going to do is run to Dumbledore and blab, he remarked, picking up his book and stalking away. She glanced around at the others in the common room. Many had shamelessly eavesdropped. Dean knew what Harry had remarked was true. Last year they hadn't supported him, like they should have. To see it from Harry's point of view was an eye-opener. Hermione could see in their eyes that many had believed the prophet's lies. But now, with the facts laid out in front of them, she felt the sofa dip slightly as Neville Longbottom sat beside her. Here, Hermione, he offered her a handkerchief. You know, my gran has never really trusted Dumbledore either. Many of the neutrals and a few of the light families don't as well. One of the reasons is his greater good philosophy. Gran, in one of her snits, inquired him, the greater good for whom? And he was unable to give her a decent answer. But, Hermione, you have to decide, Neville informed her. Which is more important to you? Harry's friendship or your worship of Dumbledore? You better decide quickly, or Harry just might decide for you. Harry dreamed that night of Dumbledore and Snape talking in Dumbledore's office. I need to know what is going on. Severus, this not knowing is hurting the war effort. You must try again, the headmaster demanded. Severus shook his head. No, Albus, I don't know how he did it, but I cannot break into his mind. Someone has helped the brat and did a very good job of it. Find someone else. I refuse to try again. Albus glanced like a petulant child being denied a sweet as he sat behind his desk, stroking his beard. This won't do, Severus. What would Lily say? Damn it, leave her out of it. This has nothing to do with her. Snape yelled at his mentor. Harry's mind is closed. Find someone else or do it yourself. With that he stormed out of the headmaster's office. Harry cackled in his sleep. Ron knew he wasn't the brightest of the Weasley brood, but even he knew something was up. Hearing Harry cackle in his sleep sent a cold shiver up his spine. It didn't take a chess master to know he'd screwed up with Harry last year. He also knew that Harry never really trusted him again, even if he did forgive him. Harry was like that. Harry didn't hold a grudge, but if you lost his trust, it was very hard, if not impossible, to regain it. In Ron's opinion, Harry was going dark. He could see it. Why couldn't anyone else? October saw Harry as busy as ever. He took to his classes like a duck to water. Since he had no one to hinder him this time, and didn't have to hide his intelligence, he began to excel. Hermione still tried to get him alone to demand answers, but he ignored her. He would continue to ignore her until she could prove to him that she wouldn't go to Dumbledore. The nagging, bushy-haired termagant finally caved and left him alone. The old Harry would have long ago told her everything, but this new Harry was beyond anything she was able to cope with. He had been her best friend since first year and she finally realized she had messed up big time. She didn't know what to do now. As for Dumbledore, he was busy dealing with Fudge and several educational decrees the minister insisted on enacting. Harry just sat back and watched while, as Percy would have put it, Dumb and Dumber battled it out. Auror Dawlish was proving to be an interesting instructor. He tried several times to get under Harry's skin by goading him into rash behavior, but so far had failed. Honestly, Dawlish had nothing on Clarice and her sibs in Aries' cabin. Even Dudley had better quips. Harry proved that he could and would take anything Dawlish dished out in class. Of course, Dawlish was further upset by Peeves' constant pranks in front of the Dada classroom. Seems the poltergeist had taken a liking to pranking the surly Auror. Professors Vector, Babbling and Flitwick were very pleased with Harry finally taking his studies seriously. To them, Harry was showing Auror and more that he inherited his mother's intelligence. However, not all of the professors were pleased with this new Harry. Professor McGonagall called him into her office in the middle of October. "Mr. Potter, have a seat," she remarked, pouring herself a cup of tea. "Care for a cuppa?" "Yes please, milk with 2 sugars, he remarked, making himself comfortable. Professor, what is this all about?" She smiled at her favorite student as she passed over the steaming cup. "I have been going over your grades, Mr. Potter, and am a bit surprised at them. Why didn't you show this kind of ability in your first years?" Harry frowned and wondered for a moment. "Well, Professor, it's like this. Quote, he went on to explain how he was kept back at the Dursleys and was often punished for doing better than his cousin. "I did, but no one would listen. So I stopped trying, as it only brought on more punishment," Harry informed her, setting down his untouched cup. Although he trusted her more than the headmaster, he wasn't fool enough to drink something he was unsure of. "If I might ask, why now, Professor? You never really cared before." "I assure you, Mr. Potter, I did, and do, care." Harry shook his head. "I am sorry, Professor, but I don't believe you." She reared back as if struck as he continued. "I came to you back in first year, but you dismissed me with a scowl, telling me to mind my own business. As for my grades, by the time I realized that no one really cared about them but me, it was too late. All the professors had me pegged as a lazy, mediocre student. It didn't help that Ronald Weasley, one of my first friends, scoffed at studying and dragged me down with him. Well, this being my 5th year, why bother hiding it? It'll come out when I take my owls. She was seething inside. She knew she was clearly at fault, but for him to be so matter-of-fact about it. Well, she would have something to say about that. Damn that Albus. He was the one pushing for answers. Well, he's not going to get answers from her. He can do his own dirty work. I see, Mr. Potter. Do you still want to be an Auror? No, Professor. I have some wonders on that, but for now I'm waiting to see what my owls bring, he told her. You may go, Mr. Potter. I have to think on this. Yes, Professor. Good evening. There is only 1.5 chapter left. Someone inquired me if we hate Dumbledore that much. We don't hate him. We hate the fact that he turned a blind eye to Harry's growing up. We see him as a senile old man with delusions, nothing more, and try to convey that in our writing. GFI.S working on a Spirited Away in XXXHOLIC cross ATM. Stay tuned. Until next time. GF. Chapter 10. Father's World. Chapter 10. Endgame. A week before Halloween and Harry was still busy with his studies. NCE the tutoring with his parents and his sire over the summer. Harry was having an easier time of it with his study load. Harry knew time was running out. He had to decide what to do about Riddle and the final Horcrux. He knew he had to do something that would satisfy both his sire and grandfather. First, he sent out a note to the Unspeakables. He informed them that he had taken care of all but one of the bloody things. And he was ready for the final showdown. If they wanted a front row seat, they would have to do as he remarked. They sent back a note asking for a meeting. So, on the next Hogsmeade weekend, Harry found himself in a private room at the Hog's Head pub. He was a little nervous, since the bar was run by the headmaster's brother, but he was assured that Albus Dumbledore would not get wind of the meeting. Aberforth Dumbledore glanced a little like his brother, except for the sanctimonious aura that his brother projected. He held no love for Albus and would take great joy in sticking it to him. So, you have destroyed all the rest of those vile things? The Unspeakable inquired as he secured the room against intruders and listening spells. Yes, sir, Harry affirmed calmly. He told of how he found all of them, including a trap that had been sprung by Regulus Black, and rebaited with a fake Horcrux. The last one I took care of was in Hogwarts itself, Harry ticked off the list. The cleansed Hufflepuff cup was given to the goblins to be held for its true owners. I gave the diadem to Professor Flitwick as it belonged to Rowena Ravenclaw, and the locket I gave to Regulus, old house elf. I wondered it was fitting that creature have the locket after trying for so many years to fulfill his master's last command. Very well, the Unspeakable nodded. What about the last one? Well, there is Riddle himself. His true body perished when I was attacked as a toddler, and that soul piece is now inhabiting a homunculus. And the last is his snake, Nagini. What happened to the soul fragments? We would have loved to study one. Well, Lord Hades took it as a very personal insult that someone tried to cheat death in such a vile way. I sent all the ones I found to him. If you want to study one, good luck. Take it up with him, Harry remarked with a smirk. There was no way he was going to get on the wrong side of his grandfather. The Unspeakable sighed. Harry was correct. Greek gods had a nasty reputation for cursing first, and asking questions later. So, when and where did you plan to finish this? And who did you want to witness it? He inquired instead. Harry grinned. In that moment, it became very apparent just who Harry's deity parent was by the sheer evilness in that grin. And it wasn't a Greek deity either. He showed the note to the Unspeakable, that he was planning on sending to the Dark Tosser. My lord, I overheard the Potter brat talking about visiting his parents' graves at Godric's Hollow on Halloween night. He was telling his little F. Wrens he wanted to go alone to pay his respects to his parents. Here is your chance, my lord. Harry explained that with Dobby's help, he wrote the note on Malfoy parchment with Draco's handwriting and magical signature. Harry figured if Dobby could fake Harry's magical signature when he pulled that stunt at his relative's home, he could do the same with Draco's signature. The Unspeakable nodded. We wizards tend to forget the loyalty and abilities of house elves. The Unspeakable went to Madame Bones for a short and explosive meeting. She didn't take it well. And why am I now finding out about all this? She argued. And why would you allow a 15-year-old take on a wizard with 50 years of experience? Where was Dumbledore? Albus Dumbledore is a fool, the hooded figure had snarled back. There was a questionable prophecy that remarked the boy had to deal with Riddle. As you know, Riddle took extreme measures to stay on this plane of existence. Dumbledore sat on his ass. ND tried to make the prophecy come out his way. It cost the lives of many good people, including Potter's parents. Mr. Potter wasn't alone in this. He knows what he is doing, and yes, he has a plan. You were invited, as a witness. A witness, a witness, she screamed. Do you or do you not want to see the end of this wizard's reign of terror? The unspeakable countered. This is the only way. Believe me, this will work. So are you in or not? Do I have a choice? Not really, Amelia. There are powers at work here that it is not wise to cross. Trust Potter. He does know what he is doing. He has been well prepared to deal with this. Those powers made sure of it. Lord Voldemort cackled. He had Potter now. The bald wizard with no nose and red eyes waved his clenched fist gleefully. Potter will pay. Lucius, your son has finally come through for me. He informs me that Potter will be at Godric's Hollow tonight. I will go with you, Bellatrix and Wormtail, and you shall witness my triumph over the brat. My lord, why not let me bring a group of your trusted followers? The blonde aristocrat inquired. Because, the Dark Lord yelled. Potter's mine. I will be the one to defeat him. You and Bella are more than enough to witness my triumph over one underage and untrained wizard. Crucio. Nagini was out hunting. With her master's obsession over some untrained wizard brat, she was being neglected. It just wouldn't do. She was getting ready to shed and she was hungry and itchy. She never sensed the spell heading her way, or the so-called untrained wizard brat, who stepped out of the shadows. Harry smiled. It was just as his dream had shown him. Here he would find the last Horcrux. Why is it always Halloween that shite happens to me? Harry inquired himself, as he walked silently to the gargoyle that guarded the headmaster's office. The Halloween feast has just ended and it was time to finish this. All Harry had to do was get the Elder Wand away from the headmaster. He, using his talent of disillusionment, was following the retreating headmaster to his office. His talent was an inherited trait and not a spell that could be undone. He didn't think the headmaster, or anyone in fact, knew that he was following the old goat. Harry had used his ability to create an illusion of himself to escape from the watchful gazes of his classmates. His double-sighted, that it was the night of his parents' death and he wanted to be alone for a while before leaving the Great Hall. Hugging the shadows, Harry followed the headmaster up the stairs to his office. He was sure that Dumbledore would notice. But he didn't seem to. Maybe another clue that the headmaster was losing it, that he was becoming too complacent. A silent stun spell and Albus Dumbledore slumped across his desk. This was too easy. Harry stepped out of the shadows with his invisibility cloak pulled tight about him. A quick exchange of wands and Harry was out of there. Albus Dumbledore was none the wiser. The paintings saw nothing save a wand disappear and reappear. Harry could feel the surge of power as the wand changed its allegiance to him. After all, as Lord Hades was his grandfather, why wouldn't the wand want him as its owner? He quickly left Hogwarts and used the port key to where it all started, Godric's Hollow. If it all went well, it'd end tonight. Godric's Hollow was quiet. The trick-or-treaters were long since gone home. Any mischief makers had been corralled and sent on their way by watchful villagers. No one noticed the wards around the small village graveyard to keep the townsfolk away tonight. By his parents' graves, a young man lit a small brazier. Harry Potter knew it was time to put everything to rest. All he had to do was wait for all the participants to arrive. He made a small offering to his sire and grandfather that all would go well. A large silken bag lay at his feet. He would use that to summon the main event. The Unspeakable and Amelia Bones were hidden in the shadows not far away. The stern woman was far from happy. She wanted to bring in a team of Aurors with her, but she was talked out of it. Harry argued that the Americans had the right idea when they invented the KISS system. KISS. She yelled at him. Keep it simple, stupid, he told her. Why go complicated when the simple plans work better? The head of magical law enforcement could not fault that. She sighed and disappeared into the shadows. Harry heard a popping sound and knew that the Dark Lord was here. He smiled, remembering what his sire taught him: timing now was everything. Harry had run out of time. It was now or nothing. At the sound of people apparating in, he turned to the brazier and lifted up the silken bag that held the stunned snake. He couldn't afford to kill Nagini, as he didn't want the soul leech to escape. "Lord Hades, tonight is the night," he remarked as he threw the bagged snake into the fire. "Accept this offering and send forth Thanatos, as I wish to parley with him." "Potter," the Dark Lord snarled as he strolled into the graveyard. Harry could make out Lucius Malfoy and Peter Pettigrew with someone that he didn't quite know trailing behind the snake-like wizard. "Are you preparing to die?" "Let me, my lord," the insane witch by his side whined, stepping forward. Lucius and Peter hung back. "Later, Bella," Lord Voldemort brushed her off. "So Potter, offering to the dead, how quaint. I will be magnanimous and allow you to finish your ceremony." Harry didn't have to finish as the snake bag burned. Suddenly it exploded, causing everyone to take a step back. A tall, glowing being wearing a long hooded black cloak stepped out of the fire. Harry had never really cared for Thanatos, but the Guardian of the Gates of Hell took his job very seriously. And this was serious. He bowed low to the figure. "Lord Thanatos, I have brought you a gift. The last remaining bit of soul of Tom Marvolo Riddle, and 3 of his minions." "What treachery is this?" "Bella, Lucius," Lord Voldemort screamed as he raised his wand. Bella didn't need much encouragement as she fired off a killing curse at the hooded figure. Lucius also fired off several curses. Peter hung back in the shadows. Harry, however, just ducked and rolled out of the way. The Unspeakable and Madame Bones started to step out of the shadows, only to be stopped by Harry's signal. The hooded figure just held up his hand and the curses paused in midair as the figure grasped them in his hand and tightened his grip. The curses crumbled as if made from dust. The trio stopped in mid-cast, as if they were frozen in time. "I am pleased, cousin. Riddle has long been a sore point. A blot on my ledgers. This is the last piece of his soul, which I will take gladly." Thanatos, Guardian of the Gates, intoned. "I am afraid you must deal with the trio with him, as it is not their time yet." Harry sighed. "Well, so much for that plan. I had hoped. Well, no matter. Lord Thanatos, before you go, I have one more thing to do." "What is that, cousin?" Harry held up a stone and a wand. "These are 2 of the Deathly Hallows, which was how I was able to call onto you. I, being the grandson of Hades, have more than enough power. I do not need these as well. They are too powerful for this world. I would like to keep the cloak. It's a family heirloom. I don't have much from my birth parents. Please, if you don't mind." Thanatos chuckled darkly. "Father always remarked you were an interesting legacy. You, like that Percy Jackson, don't care for power. It is acceptable. I will take the pair and leave the cloak." "Wait," the hooded Unspeakable yelled as he stepped into the clearing. "You can't. The Deathly Hallows need to be studied. We need to know more about them than just the legend." Harry shook his head. "Moron," Harry muttered under his breath. Thanatos waved his hand and the hood of the Unspeakable fell away, revealing Aberforth Dumbledore. Harry groused. "I might have known. You better keep your trap shut about this." The brother of Albus Dumbledore ignored Harry. "The Deathly Hallows, as you quaintly call them, should never have been left in this world. They were created as a test for Lord Hades, demigod bastards. They failed, save for the youngest," Thanatos remarked. "But we need to study them," Aberforth Dumbledore pleaded, only to see the 2 Hallows disappear into Thanatos' robes. Ignoring the Unspeakable, Thanatos turned to Harry. "Cousin, you were wise in returning them. You have fulfilled your quest. All of Tom Riddle's soul has been returned to the underground where it belongs. Live your life well." A flare of light and Thanatos, with Lord Voldemort in hand, was gone. The fire in the brazier had burned down to glowing embers. "No." Bella, now freed from the Guardian's thrall, screamed in hysterics as she started to fire spell after spell at Harry. "Bring him back, Stupefy," yelled Madame Bones and Aberforth together. Lucius Malfoy and Bella Lestrange fell to the ground stunned. Harry brushed off the grass stains from his knees. "Well, I don't think Malfoy will get away with the imperious plea again, will he?" Not if I have anything to say. Madam Bones sputtered as she stepped over the pair and towards Harry. Are you all right, Mr. Potter? I'm fine, madam. Just relieved that it is over with, Harry remarked as he vanished the brazier. As am I, came a silky voice from the shadows. The trio whirled around and only two had their wands out. A very tall, pale figure stepped out of the shadows. He was dressed in black fur and silk. Harry blinked and bowed. What? Harry, my son, Loki remarked with a malicious smirk. It is over. Now you can get on with your life. But why are you here, father? Harry inquired, with a deep bow. You did not think I would allow that Greek have all the fun, now did you? Loki inquired as he glanced down at the pair of stunned Death Eaters at his feet. Who are you? Madam Bones demanded. Aberforth grabbed the head of the DMLE's wand arm and forced her arm down. Forgive us, Lord, we did not quite brief her on all aspects of Harry's life. She doesn't know. Quite all right, this time. I can't stay much longer or the Allfather and his oafish son will notice I am missing from the feast. Harry, no, I am pleased. Keep up with your studies as I will be watching. Loki stopped and held up a hand with a stunned rat dangling by its tail. Mustn't forget this. Quote, thank you, father. Sirius will be quite pleased to finally have his name cleared. Loki walked a few steps backwards, tossing the rat at Harry's feet. Do try not to lose him this time, Loki remarked before turning and walking back into the shadows. Who was that? Madam Bones demanded. What in Merlin's name is going on? Not here, Harry remarked as he heard the cawing of ravens in the distance. Albus woke to the shouting of the paintings in his office. Albus, wake up, you fool. Phineas, anything wrong? I must have fallen asleep, Albus remarked as he straightened in his chair. You were attacked, you fool, the painting of Phineas Black yelled at the headmaster. We couldn't see who it was as they kept to the shadows. They took something from your desk and left. We couldn't see them as they were disillusioned. Very puzzling. I'll look into it, Albus remarked as he checked the wards of the school. It could have been anyone, probably a student trying to prank him. He hadn't been all that careful leaving the feast last night. The castle wards were telling him that no one had entered or left the school, which was more puzzling as he watched the dawn breaking from his window. Madam Bones was very hard to convince about keeping quiet on the how and why of Lord Voldemort aka Tom Riddle's demise. She wanted to make an announcement first thing in the morning. Why? Harry inquired. To tell the world that you know who is dead, she remarked as if to a simple child. Why? Harry inquired again. It's over. We can move on, she explained, as if to a child. No, why must we announce it? Harry inquired. How are you going to explain that I offered up Riddle to a Greek deity? Fudge would have me up on charges, or worse, locked in St. Mungo's for the criminally insane. Malfoy and his ilk would still be running around to do as they pleased. No, we aren't going to. We are going to go about it as a normal day as usual, giving you time to round up all the marked and unmarked death munchers. Without the head, the snake's body will take time to realize it's dead, but they still can do damage. Besides, quote, besides what, Harry? Aberforth inquired. I'd rather not give your brother any more control of my life, or the satisfaction of knowing that Riddle's gone. He created this mess that I had to clean up. I should be able to have some fun at his expense, don't you agree? Neither one could fault Harry on that. Harry picked up the stunned rat. Do either of you know how to change an animagus back to human? But it's just a rat, Madam Bones remarked, as Aberforth cast the spell. Hominum revelio. Quote. My word, it's Peter Pettigrew. Harry sighed. Let's hope Sirius Black can get the trial he deserves. Aberforth Dumbledore grimaced. I can guarantee that he will. We have glanced as you requested and you were correct, there was no trial. The only thing G found in Black's file was trial pending. Sirius will be so pleased. One chapter left. The sequel is in the planning stage. GF has a very rough outline in her mind but isn't quite happy with it. We'll see. P.S. Serious reaction next chapter. Until next time. GF and the Frau. Chapter 11. Father's World. Chapter 11. Harry quietly moved toward the school through the hidden tunnel that connected Honeydukes and the third-floor corridor. He was sure no one knew he had left the school. Even if they did, they wouldn't be able to detect him, not even through the castle wards. His grandfather's cloak would guarantee that. If he was lucky, he might get a couple hours of sleep before class. He hoped. Thankfully, Madam Bones had agreed to wait until the weekend before another meeting. She'd had a lot to do in the meantime, though she was still upset about not letting everyone know that the Dark Lord was no more. Harry did hope that Madam Bones kept her word. Harry smirked as he wondered, Lucius Malfoy isn't gonna be able to talk or bribe his way out of this one. He was quite sure of that. And Bellatrix was now completely certifiable. There would be no second chances for her, either. She was declared criminally insane and very dangerous. The Ministry knew if she ever got hold of a wand, she would go on another killing spree. The rest was out of Harry's hands at this point. It wasn't until after breakfast a few days later that Harry met with Madam Bones. She came to Hogwarts. Harry was called into the headmaster's office to find Madam Bones waiting with the headmaster and Dawlish. Mr. Potter, Madam Bones started to say, only to be interrupted by the headmaster. I still think there is some sort of mistake, Amelia, Albus was saying with a grandfatherly twinkle. Surely Harry doesn't need to be called before the Wizengamot. I am afraid I must insist, Albus. Mr. Potter is very much needed. Madam Bones snapped, turning back to Harry. Mr. Potter, you have been called in front of a session of the Wizengamot to give testimony. As I understand it, you tried to tell the minister that Mr. Black was innocent in your third year, but he refused to believe you. Yes, ma'am, Harry remarked. Professor Snape convinced the minister that we, my friends and I, were hit with a confundus charm. We weren't, but the minister was all too ready to believe him and didn't want to listen to us, mere children. I see. She turned to Dawlish. I understand you were with the minister. Yes, Madam Bones. John Dawlish glanced a bit green, answering her. And you didn't think it necessary to follow standard or procedures? She glared at him. We were told by the minister not to interfere, Madam Bones. Besides, the chief warlock was standing right there and remarked nothing as well. She growled in the back of her throat before turning to the headmaster. And why didn't you push for a trial? It was the children's word against the minister's, Amelia. What was I to do? The headmaster inquired, spreading his arms up and out. You could have followed the law and demanded a trial with Veritaserum. The laws are not your playthings, to do with as you please, Albus. She snarled. Now we are leaving. You are expected at the Wizengamot in an hour. Mr. Potter, go prepare yourself and meet me in the front entrance in 10 minutes. Do not keep me waiting. Harry turned and left. As he ran down the stairs heading for his dorm, he could hear the headmaster's voice. Really, Amelia, is this necessary? It isn't safe for Mr. Potter. He was glad he was too far away to understand her answer. The Wizengamot was waiting when Amelia and Harry appeared. Minister Fudge glanced, in Harry's opinion, a little lost and a lot scared. He doesn't know we have Lord Malfoy in custody. No one does, and that we've been feeding him Veritaserum. The blonde Ponce has been singing like a lark, Madam Bones whispered, leaning over to Harry. I don't like the fact we are keeping that night a secret. She went on even more softly, but, after thinking it over, and realizing the benefits, I can't fault your reasons. She ended with a smirk. Madam Bones, Harry responded softly, I don't want you to make that particular news public until Dumbles dies. I want him to live waiting for that last shoe to drop. I hope it gives him ulcers. A fitting punishment for the secretive old fool, don't you think? She glanced Harry in the eye and smirked again. I won't deny I like the fact that I have the old goat by his bits and he doesn't even know it. Harry smothered a laugh at the image that gave him as he followed her into the chamber and took a seat in the gallery. He would be called from there. The trial was, in reality, little more than a formality. A whimpering, whining Chair Pettigrew was dragged in by two burly Aurors. He was wrapped in chains and magic-suppressing manacles. Peter was questioned about his role in the betrayal of the Potters. When he confessed under Veritaserum that it was he, and not Sirius Black, who betrayed the Potters, chaos reigned. Harry was called down to tell of that night in his third year. Fudge tried to protest. He was clearly hit with a confundus. The minster yelled, "And how did you know that, Minister?" Madam Bones purred dangerously. Why, Professor Snape remarked so. He was there as well. So let me get this straight, Minister. You took the word of a former Death Eater and not that of Harry Potter, the boy who lived. Is that what you are telling me? And you failed to verify that Mr. Potter had indeed been cursed. Fudge stammered and stuttered and remarked. Well, everyone knows the boy is an attention-seeking liar. Everyone, Minister. She glared at the squirming, red-faced man. I sure don't. My niece Susan, who is in the same year as Mr. Potter, doesn't think so. Or are you starting to believe your own smear campaign against a boy who also happens to be the head of an ancient and noble house? Well, Fudge stammered, looking around for support. Are you trying to tell my Aurors how to do their job, Minister? Madam Bones demanded. No, madam. I wouldn't dream of it. She turned back to Harry. Please continue, Mr. Potter. Harry glanced her in the eye and remarked, do you want me to swear on my magic or something that I am telling the truth? She gave a slight nod. If you would. Harry raised his wand and remarked, I, Lord Harry James Potter, do swear on my magic that what I say in this chamber will be as truthful as I know it to be, and will only answer any questions from Madam Bones, and no other. If I don't know the full and true answer, I will say, I don't know, for the next hour. So mote be. A glow of magic haloed Harry. He and Madam Bones had worked out that oath. Any questions she, and only she, inquired he would answer as truthfully as possible. Anyone else could piss off. Only a few of the members fully understood the wording of the oath. They were impressed. This Potter wasn't the arrogant, ignorant fool the papers were trying to make him out to be. Albus Dumbledore also realized that he couldn't ask Harry any questions as he might not get the truth from the teen. He only had an hour to misdirect, but he was certain that Amelia would bring matters back on track quickly if he did. Harry answered everything that Madam Bones put to him and Albus found that he couldn't do anything but object every now and then. After a sharp set down by Augusta Longbottom the second time he objected, he didn't even dare that. Harry shared what happened during the third task, and what the minister remarked afterwards. Amos Diggory was clearly upset when Harry got to the point of when Cedric's spirit came out of Voldemort's wand and inquired Harry to take his body home. Peter Pettigrew was recalled to confirm Harry's testimony. He stated that it was he that killed Cedric Diggory, on the Dark Lord's orders and with the Dark Lord's wand. He also conducted the ritual that brought the Dark Lord back to life. The Dark Lord will free me. I am his personal servant. Peter screamed. Not if you are pushed through the veil. He won't, Madam Bones responded. Fellow members, have you heard enough? Harry watched as Peter Pettigrew was sentenced to the veil that same night. He noted that the headmaster didn't like it and tried to plead clemency. He also noted the minister was still looking lost. His puppet master, Malfoy, wasn't there to pull his strings. Sirius Black was found innocent of all charges. Harry cheered at that and gleefully cackled in the face of the headmaster. He was sure the old coot would still try to force Harry back to the Dursleys. Like that was going to happen, he mused. He'd already made plans to go back to Camp Half-Blood for the summer halls. Sirius Black was indeed very upset with his godson, despite his newly won freedom. Not only did Harry not include him when he faced old Tommy Boy, but he also left him out of the planning to win him his freedom. I know, Sirius, Harry explained. But I couldn't have you there. You weren't free yet. Besides, do you think my grandfather would have been happy to see you there, after the stunts you pulled at camp? It's not fair. Came a distinctly canine-like whine. Whiner. Be thankful that father gave me Pettigrew. He could have kept him as a snack for Fenris. Sirius couldn't anything about that except he was sure the huge Asgardian wolf would have gotten heartburn out of the deal. Since the day that account manager Flintlock met with the Dursleys, their fortunes had turned sour. First, was the audit of their finances, to see where the stipends that they received for the Potter brat went. Petunia Dursley, very loudly, denied that they ever received any monies, but found out differently when shown the bank's records of payment. Vernon Dursley used the money on everything but where it was supposed to go. All the toys bought at Christmas with remarked money went to Dudley. All the funds for clothes to properly attire a scion of an ancient and noble house, and a peer of the realm, went to Dudley. Even their yearly vacation was paid by the stipends. The English Court took a dim view of stealing from a minor, when the case finally crossed their docket. The goblins hated thieves, period. And serving under a human glamour, they called for all the monies to be returned immediately. The judge agreed and gave the Dursleys 1 year to do so. They would never be able to repay all of it in that short amount of time. Petunia shrieked, then fainted. Vernon Dursley, never realizing that they had a peer under their roof, tried to bluff his way out. He wondered he could use Harry's title to open a few doors, but when it came out that he'd stolen from his young nephew's trust fund, he became persona non grata. He then tried to leave the country, but was caught at the airport by 2 short, stocky men, after which he disappeared, never to be seen again. In Gringotts, it was rumored that a dragon came down with indigestion, not long after Dursley's disappearance. Dudley Dursley, after his near escape from the Dementors, wrote a letter to Flintlock. He was sorry for all he did to Harry. He had a small inheritance coming to him from his grandparents, for college tuition. He couldn't touch the funds until he reached 18. It wasn't much, but if it helped, they could have it. Flintlock showed the letter to Harry, who told him not to take the money on the condition that Dudley went to military school instead of Smeltings. He would make up the difference for the tuition if necessary. However, if Dudley so much as steps out of line, take the rest of the money and smack him down hard. He's got this one chance and that's it, Harry instructed. Number 4 Privet Drive was seized and sold. Harry wanted to burn the place down, but was talked out of it. Petunia never got a good night's sleep from that time on. In her dreams, she revisited everything she and her husband did to Harry as if she was Harry and actually living through it. Loki and his illusions saw to that. Harry returned to Hogwarts and his studies. He still had to make his sire proud of him. So he started to make life interesting for some of his professors. Harry concluded Binns just had to go. So, after history class a week after the Wizengamot session, he approached the elderly spirit. Binns hovered behind his desk as Harry approached him. Yes, Peterson, Professor Binns. Harry flared a bit of his power at the history of magic professor. Binns shivered a bit and blinked. Sorry, my lord, I did not recognize you. What can I do for you? I think you need to pass on, Professor. You're not doing the students any good and you've made teaching history a joke, Harry informed him. Binns hung his head. I am tired of teaching and wish to move on, but who will take my place? I am only waiting for my replacement. Has the headmaster finally hired someone? Harry glanced at him a bit astonished. Is that all? I'm sure if you decide to pass on today, there'll be a new professor by the end of the week. Are you sure, my lord? Binns inquired hopefully. I am very tired and want to rest. Harry gave a quick nod. Binns sighed a whispery, ethereal moan and faded away. Harry turned and walked from the now empty classroom. He found the Bloody Baron and told him what happened. The ghost shook his head. I knew that Cuthbert wanted to pass for some time, but I couldn't convince him to do so. Nor could I persuade the headmaster to replace him. I am happy he has finally found peace. Will you tell the headmaster for me? I shall. Albus Dumbledore just couldn't figure where it all went wrong. Not only that, but his wand, the Elder Wand, no longer worked. A quick inspectee on told him it glanced like the ancient Death Wand, but a closer look revealed it was a fake. Someone had switched wands on him. The only time it could have happened was Halloween night when the paintings told him someone had stunned him. But that was impossible. No one could get into his office without him knowing. It was very puzzling. Then, there was Harry. What to do about the boy? He just wasn't listening to anything Albus was telling him. What to do? With the wards gone, Harry couldn't return to his aunt's home. He definitely didn't want Sirius and Harry together. That was a recipe for disaster. What to do? What to do? Harry chuckled as he finally figured out what to do about the senile old coot masquerading as a headmaster. He would do nothing. The best pranks were those that forced the victim to prank themselves. He'd leave Albus Dumbledore alone and let him be, as his sire would say, hoist on his own petard. Only Madame Bones and the head unspeakable knew that Riddle was now spending time in Tartarus. No one would pay attention to the old wizard, and his claims that the Dark Lord was back and everyone must prepare. After all, didn't their ministry claim otherwise? Hey Scar Head, Harry grinned as he turned to face Malfoy. Oh, this will be fun. But rest assured, There will be a sequel, when the bunny finally decides to settle into a proper plotline. Until next time. GF and the Frau.